Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is Open Mic. Now, what is Open Mic? Well, I'm awfully glad that you asked. To see every day, Monday through Friday on the John Campea Show at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We save the second half of the show to take your live questions. But here on the weekends, a little bit more laid back, a little bit more relaxed. That's all we do, is take your live questions and talking about the things that you guys want to talk about. When it comes to things like movies, movie news, television, the things that even as worldwide, international fellow film fans, we can all rally around. You know, I've always said the great thing about movies, and there's many great things about movies and television and storytelling, is that it doesn't matter. You can get two people from different parts of the world that have different ethnic backgrounds, speak different languages, come from different socioeconomical situations, different sexual orientations, different types of careers and jobs, different gender, whatever. You can get two people from anywhere in the world with radically different backgrounds, radically different points of view, radically different everything about their lives, but they can sit down at a table together and they can talk about Lord of the Rings. Or they can sit down, they can talk about The Godfather. Or they can sit down and share their love of Harry Potter, and that's one of the great things, and that's why I love every single day when we get together with our international friends and talk about the things that we all love, and that includes here on the weekends, guys. So I'm glad that you guys decided to make today, this show, part of your day on this Saturday, and I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend ahead. So listen, we do have a lot of things to talk about, and we are going to get directly to your questions, but just in a second. You know, something came up yesterday that I thought Rob and I will talk about again on Monday, but I felt it was just like way too big to not at least address a little bit right here and right now. And that one little thing that we really need to talk about right now is AMC theaters. Now, they have said, we've talked on here before that, things aren't looking great. Things are not looking great for the movie theater industry. Things are not looking awesome for the movie theater industry right now. With all the theaters closed, with the movies having to push their release dates out. These places are huge, massive places, and they're just straight up losing money right now. They're just straight up losing money. And we talked a little while ago about the fact that things were particularly grim for AMC theaters. Things were bad for AMC theaters because they were going into it $5 billion in debt. And the reason they were going in $5 billion in debt is because over the last couple of years, they have done a lot of growth and a lot of expansion, from doing massive reseats in a lot of their theaters, turning them from regular movie theaters into leather recliner, motorized recliner theaters, building a whole lot of prime theaters. They also took over a number of some smaller movie chains as well to breathe new life into those. And of course, the massive expense of getting their AMC A-List program up and running, a program that lost them money, and they knew it would lose them money for the first little while. But finally, in the last quarter, A-List started to make a profit for AMC, but it just started, right? So AMC was in a position of being massively in debt, but things were starting to go exactly the way they planned. This expansion, the whole reason they did it, the growth with AMC A-List, all of it was coming together exactly as they had hoped. And then the lockdown happened. And we knew that it was going to be a troubling time for a lot of the movie theaters, all of the movie theaters. And we spoke a few weeks ago specifically about AMC, that, hey, their books aren't looking so good. AMC in particular could be in a good amount of trouble. Well, listen, that good amount of trouble has just become absolutely catastrophic. It's become absolutely catastrophic. The news on this dropped yesterday. But S&P Global has dropped the rating of AMC from a B-, I believe it was at, to CCC. Now, basically what that means is this, and I'm just going to read what they have here. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen this news as well. But basically the message here is they are doubting AMC is going to be able to recover from this. The largest movie theater chain in the world may not be able to recover from this. Now, I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs here. S&P Global said the world's largest exhibitor, AMC Entertainment, risks running out of cash by midsummer, and the ratings agency doesn't think the movie theaters will reopen in June, a prediction by AMC CEO Adam Aron, made to CNBC this week. We expect AMC Entertainment theaters will remain closed beyond June due to the impact of the global pandemic. We do not believe AMC has, this is the key, this is where it starts to get important. We do not believe AMC has sufficient sources of liquidity to cover its expected negative cash flows past midsummer. And we believe the company will likely breach a debt covenant in September, absent a waiver from its lender, S&P said, knocking the company's credit rating to CCC- from B- with outlook being negative. Now, it goes on to basically spew more and more bad news. And the basic gist of it is, without going into it all in too much terrible detail, is the financial situation. This is a perfect storm in all the worst ways for AMC. They did all this expansion. They got themselves really heavily into debt with a plan, and that's when this thing hit. Just as they were starting to turn a profit on their big AMC A-list thing, that's when this thing hit. Now, some people I had tweeting to me last night saying, John, I don't understand. Like, how can a company like AMC Theaters, which is the biggest in the world when it comes to the movie exhibition space, how can they be in trouble more than, say, I don't know, Cinemark, or more than like Landmark, or more than Regal, like companies that aren't as big as AMC? How come they're not in more trouble than AMC is? And the reason for that is, of course, what we were just talking about, the fact that AMC had leveraged themselves with a strategy that they never could have seen this coming, but they had levered themselves so much that they were in a position where a lockdown like this was going to do more damage to them than anybody else. And make no mistake about it, every movie theater company is getting damaged by this. They all are. It's hurting everybody. But there is a very legit chance, I'm not saying 90%, but there is a legit chance that the biggest movie theater chain in the world may not open back up. That is a very real chance. Something that if you had said that to me even just 1 month ago, I would have said, no, that's crazy. It's AMC. They're giant. They're huge. But sometimes the bigger you are, the more weight you have to sustain, and they could be in real trouble. And when you have all the infrastructure that AMC has with negative cash flow, and you have like, I think 600 locations of these, just the rent, the lease space alone and property taxes and everything just on the AMC Burbank 16. This monstrous temple of movies in Burbank here, the amount of money that must cost them per month just to be there is almost uncalculable at this point. They have debts that are coming due. It's rough, man. It's rough. I'll tell you the reason why, though. I believe that this will still work out. I will tell you why I believe this will still work out, okay? Yes, it is very legitimate chance that AMC may never open their doors again. This is looking more and more grim every time we hear new news come out about it. But I will tell you why I still believe, can't guarantee, but why I still believe AMC will come out the other end of this. It may come out the other end of this weaker. It may come out the other end of this limping. It may come out the other end of this battered and bruised. But here's why I think AMC Theaters will come out the end of this, although I wouldn't bet money on it. Okay? I wouldn't bet money on it. And that's this. Can you even begin to imagine the incalculable damage that will be done to the studios if the biggest movie theater chain in the world that displays and shows their movies, poof, suddenly aren't there? Can you imagine the type of economic damage that's going to do to the movie industry as a whole? Now, this is something Robert Meyer Burnett and I have both been saying for a little while. What I believe will ultimately happen, and the studios won't be happy with it, nobody's going to be happy with it, but it's just a matter of survival. I think at some point, the studios are going to have to rally together. I think Bob Iger is going to have to get on the phone with, the heads of Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers are going to have to get on the phone with the heads of Paramount and Universal and Lionsgate and A24 and everybody else you can imagine. And they're all going to have a big conference call together and say, we need to do something because we can't have the biggest movie theater chain in the world suddenly disappear. We can't do that. Now, some people might suggest, well, John, how about another movie theater chain buys them out, like a Regal or some Landmark or something like that? Here's the problem. They're all getting the crap kicked out of them right now. There ain't no movie theater chain that's in a position to buy AMC theaters and assume all their debt and all their operating costs. It's just not there. So what I think will happen, and again, I am not willing to put money on this, what I think will ultimately happen is that at some point, barring a mystery investor coming in and just pouring more money into AMC to keep them afloat until they can keep things going again, barring that, I think what will happen is that the studios cannot let AMC theaters go under. I just don't think they can afford to let AMC suddenly disappear overnight. Now, you might say to yourself, well, John, the other theaters are getting the crap kicked out of them. The studios are getting the crap kicked out of them too. None of them are making any money right now. That's why I think it's going to take all of the studios to get on the phone together and say, look, we all got to pitch in. And then somehow we'll figure out how AMC's got to pay it back to us all. But we some way, we got to make this work. So again, I don't know that that's what'll happen. But I do believe, listen, guys, I never would think it's not that I'm saying it's going to happen, but there is a very legitimate possibility here that the unthinkable just a couple of months ago would have been unthinkable. The biggest movie theater chain in the world is in crisis right now. It's absolutely in crisis right now. And it's going to be interesting to see how all this resolves itself. Anyway, Robert and I are going to talk about this more on the John Campea Show on Monday. I'm sure you guys are going to have a lot of thoughts and opinions about it too, but I just think that is just like the hugest thing going. I mean, yeah, Black Widow moved, Doctor Strange moved. That's big. But I think the biggest news in the world of movie lovers right now is this AMC thing, and that's what I've got my eyes on. Anyway, guys, I'm sure a bunch of you are going to have your own thoughts and opinions on that as well. So let's stop talking about all this other stuff and let's get to the whole reason that, Open Mic is here on Saturday, taking your questions. So let's get on over. And we're going to start by getting caught up on some of the leftover questions from yesterday. Kevin Lewis writes, favorite early family movies? Love Bug 1 and 2. I loved Love Bug 1 and 2. Sound of Music, Swiss Family Robinson, The Great Race, Flubber, Computer War T, Shoes. I'm not familiar with that one, to be honest with you. Well, the one for me is going to sound like a total cop-out because it's just a big popular one, but it's absolutely true. My family and I would watch it all the time. Wizard of Oz. I feel like whenever it was on TV anywhere, if it wasn't on TV somewhere, we had a VHS tape of it or whatever, but Wizard of Oz played a lot in our house. Especially, it's still to this day at Christmas time. At one point during the Christmas vacation, Wizard of Oz will be on TV. So for me, that's that one. But yeah, man, that's a great category. Family movies, your family watch together. I like that category, Kevin. Well done. All right, Joe Slade writes, with all the reboots and remakes like Men in Black, Hellboy, Charlie's Angels, and more doing terrible at the box office, do you think studios will start to turn away from this area, or are we going to keep getting remakes and reboots of old franchises? Or we're going to still keep getting them? Yeah, we're definitely going to still keep getting them. Because, listen, a reboot or a remake or a sequel is just like any other movie. Like, for every reboot you can point to that did terribly, I can point to a bunch of other original films that did terribly. That doesn't mean movie studios are going to stop making original films, nor does it mean they're going to stop making this. And let's not forget, some of the greatest movies of all time are reboots. Listen, make no mistake about it. Hellboy would have done better if the movie wasn't terrible. Charlie's Angels would have done better if it wasn't terrible. Men in Black would have done better if it wasn't terrible. I mean, that's the thing. It's not like we're talking about really, really good movies here. It's not like we're talking about, Charlie's Angels came out and was a contender for Best Picture at the Oscars. Oh, but just didn't do very well at the box office. It's not like that's what we're talking about. But it's true of anything. Look, again, we can point to an original film like my poster child for great original films that flop. Shane Black's, Ryan Gosling's, Russell Crowe's The Nice Guys. That movie is truly one of the better movies of the past 15 years. It's amazing. Nobody went to go see it. Nobody went to go see it. You know, and we can point to a long list just in 2019 of a lot of really good original films that just tanked. But that doesn't mean it's because they're original films. These ones didn't tank because they were franchises or reboots or remakes. That's not why they tanked. They tanked because they weren't that good. And so, no, listen, when you can get IP, recognizable IP, that is very, very valuable. It's very valuable. And that doesn't mean you should just remake everything and anything, although I have no problem with that. But yeah, I wouldn't at all. I can guarantee you the studios do not chalk it up to the fact that they were reboots, nor do most movie fans. Most of us realize it's because, you know, they were bad movies and couldn't do well enough. So anyway, there's that. All right. McKeel writes, will the real Slim Shady please stand up? With that, okay, I know I did a reference. I did a reference to that on yesterday's show, but I can't remember what it was, McKeel. Sorry about that, dude. Jared McBride writes, I just ordered the Batman Arkham Knight Batmobile Elite Edition 143rd die-cast car model by Hot Wheels. That would be, unless I used to have a bunch of Hot Wheels. Don't get me wrong. I was never like an avid Hot Wheel collector, but like most kids my age growing up, I had a lot of Hot Wheels. And I used to play like crazy. And we'd get the tracks and make the loop-de-loops and all that kind of stuff. That sounds like it'd be pretty cool, that Batman one. All right. Brandon Plummer writes, hey, John, Harley Quinn Birds of Prey went back to being Birds of Prey and the Fabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn once it hit VOD. Do you remember this happening with other movies? P.S. I thought the movie was all right. Not great, but enjoyable enough. Yeah, I didn't enjoy it. It's the first DCEU movie. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the DCEU has been crushing it, but I've at least enjoyed all the DCU movies. Some I absolutely love, like Man of Steel. Some are like, yeah, it's a hot mess, but I had fun with the first Suicide Squad. It was a hot mess. I know it was a hot mess, but I had fun with it. What can I say? Harley Quinn was the first one that I just walked out going, ooh. And it's really too bad, too, because I like, who doesn't like Margot Robbie? And I like her Harley Quinn. But that movie did not work for me on almost any level, which is really too bad. I know there have been movies that have kind of swapped titles. The most recent one I can think of, and it all depends on who you ask, but was Edge of Tomorrow. You know, it was Edge of Tomorrow, and then when they put out Blu-rays and stuff like that, it had Live, Die, Repeat. And then they went back to Edge of Tomorrow, Live, Die, Repeat, and then I think it just went back to Edge of Tomorrow. Anyway, kind of crazy. I don't understand. First of all, I'll tell you right now, Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey is what the title of that movie should have been. Right? Because make no mistake, that movie is not a Birds of Prey movie. In the least. If you've seen the movie, you know it is not even remotely a Birds of Prey movie. It's not even remotely a Birds of Prey. It's a Harley Quinn movie. And Harley Quinn was the selling point. The movie should have been called Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, or Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey. That's what it should have been. Just like, you know, Edge of Tomorrow should have been called All You Need Is Kill. That's what the name of the movie should have been, because that's the name of the original story. And it's a great, unique name that you do not forget. But anyway, that's just me, Brandon. All right, Andreas writes, good day, John. Did you see the new concept art of characters of the new Star Wars Old Republic? What is your opinion? I've heard nothing about that, so I doubt that it's legitimate. Do me a favor, guys. If you know what it is Andreas is talking about, I'd love to see it. But I mean, I went through all my news sources this morning. I saw nothing about that. Could you email me, John, because I don't catch everything. It's john@thejohncampeashow.com. Email me a link to john@thejohncampeashow.com, because if something like that is out there and it's legit, I would love to see it. So thank you for bringing that up and put it on my radar, Andreas. All right. Next up here, Gabe Escure writes, have you watched Ozark season 3? I mean, it's come up a lot on the show lately. I feel like every day somebody's asking me about Ozark, and every day I have to give the same answer. I don't watch Ozark. Now, Ann and I tried to watch Ozark season 1 because we both love Lauren Linney. We both love Jason Bateman. So we tried watching it and got about 4 episodes in and we tapped out. I'm not saying people shouldn't like it. I'm not saying people shouldn't love it. I'm just saying it didn't work for us. So we tapped out on it and we haven't watched it since. Now, I know a lot of people love it and have been bringing it up a lot lately. But I don't watch it, so I can't comment on Ozark season 3, unfortunately. I watched the first 2 episodes. I got distracted by the Tiger King and don't have the strong urge to return. Not sure why not. Well, again, I can't comment on it because I haven't seen it yet myself, but a lot of people are watching Ozark season 3. A lot of people are watching it. Like, so many that I'm actually starting to maybe wonder if I should reconsider going back and trying it out again, but we'll see, Gabe. All right, Walks with Joe writes, saw 12 Angry Men, 1957 last night. Incredible. One of the positive things. Again, we're trying to make lemonade out of lemons here. One of the positive silver linings, if you will, that's coming out of this whole lockdown BS is the fact that it's giving a lot of people a chance to get caught up on some great classics. You know, I've got people writing to me saying I watched Godfather for the first time. I've watched Lawrence of Arabia for the first time. I've watched Bridge on the River Kwai for the first time. And I've had a couple people write and say they've watched 12 Angry Men for the first time. Good on you for taking advantage of that and getting caught up on some of those classics. Walks with Joe. All right, Hitman Hudson writes, Network is the greatest film ever. Changed my mind. I'm mad as hell and I ain't going to take it anymore. Here's the thing, though. If you're going to make a comment, it's not incumbent upon me to change your mind. If you're going to make a statement like that, it's incumbent upon you to convince me. If you're going to say Network is the greatest film of all time, it's on you to convince me. It's not on me to change your mind. Because all film is subjective anyway. So it is what it is. Listen, Network is not in my top 20, but there's no doubt it is a great, pivotal, iconic movie. That's one of those ones, Hitman, that people should be catching up on while in lockdown if they haven't seen it before, because it's a real good one. I do not agree it's the greatest film of all time, but it's one of the greats. It's a great one, absolutely. Stubble McShave writes, San Diego Comic-Con is probably waiting for a force majeure clause to kick in. If they pull out early, they have to pay for all the booked venues. If they wait to pull out until the government says they can't hold it, then all obligations to deals with the hotels are null and void. True, but here's the thing. It's not that cut and dry. Under extreme circumstances like right now, they don't have to wait for those clauses to kick in. They would have some legal footing of extreme situations and extreme circumstances. There would be some footing anyway. If they really felt like this isn't going to go forward and the government's not giving them any insurances, there are probably things they could do right now if they wanted to. I believe San Diego Comic-Con legitimately does not want to pull the plug on this. They will if they need to. But if there's no need to pull the plug on it right now, why would you, right? You know, I'm not saying that come the end of July, which is still over 3 months away. I'm not saying come the end of July that everything's going to be fine. I'm not saying that. But considering it is over 3 months away, and we are going to see a lot of things develop in the next 4 weeks, why would you pull the plug right now? If there is still a chance that you can pull off at least a version of your event, you know, if it's safe and if the government says it's okay and all that kind of stuff, if there is still the possibility that that could happen, why would you, pull the plug on it right now? Why would you pull the plug on it right now? Because it's not like a movie theater. Sorry, it's not like a big movie being released that needs a 3-month marketing campaign ramp up. Everybody knows about Comic-Con. Everybody's already planning on going. Comic-Con could not do one lick of advertising and they will sell out in 10 minutes once the tickets go on sale. And they know that. So while what you're saying is technically true, I don't think that's the situation we're in. I really do think that they are honestly in a position that they really do want to see if they can make it happen. And if they can't, they can't, and they pull the plug on it later. But I think they're just kind of thinking it would be premature right now to pull the plug. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Anyway, good observation on that, Stubble. All right, Darth Impact writes, next week, I would love for you to try to get Perry Nemiroff to give her 2 movie recommendations. I miss her. Great, talented pundit. I am a big Perry Nemiroff fan. Perry and I were just emailing with each other just like 2 weeks ago. I am a big Perry Nemiroff fan. Actually, to the point that when I left Collider, my last bit of advice I gave walking out the door was, as I was leaving, turn around, by the way, you make Perry Nemiroff the new host of Movie Talk. You're welcome. And then leave. Now, that is not to say that the unbelievable Mark Ellis wasn't a good host of Movie Talk. My feeling of it was this, though. Think of this in football terms. Your best player on your team isn't always the quarterback, right? Like a lot of teams that Randy Moss could play on, he was the best player on the team. He was a wide receiver. You don't put Randy Moss at quarterback. He's not going to shine if you put him in the quarterback spot. He's going to be the best player on your team and have the biggest impact and have the biggest outcomes if you put him at wide receiver. That's when he's going to shine the most. And I always kind of felt like Mark Ellis was, like, by the time I left, out of the Movie Talk stable that they had, understanding that Christian wasn't involved with Movie Talk anymore, that I thought, yeah, your MVP is Mark Ellis. Mark Ellis is your MVP. I mean, he was probably the MVP when I was still there, all right? But I didn't think the show was going to be best served by putting Mark in the main host chair. I personally thought that would limit him and put some handcuffs on him and not really allow him to fully be Mark Ellis. You know what I mean? I always felt like Mark Ellis shined best when he was wide receiver. I felt like Mark Ellis was your MVP when he was in that second chair. That's when he can really carry things and really make a big impact. And I always felt that Perry was more of that, what's the word for it? A defenseman in hockey, you call the quarterback. I guess you just call the quarterback the quarterback. I really felt Perry was uniquely gifted to be a good quarterback in the main chair and then allow Mark Ellis to super shine as the MVP in the second chair. That's how I thought. That's how I personally thought. And they eventually did make Perry the host. I thought it was too late by that point. I kind of felt by that point it was too late. They should have had Perry in there right away because I thought, again, you were taking away some of the best talent. You were limiting Mark Ellis, I thought, and he was one of the most talented guys. But it's just my opinion. Not everybody agrees. I don't even know if Mark agrees. I don't know that Mark agrees with my assessment or not, but that's how I kind of felt about it. Anyway, getting back to Perry. It is unlikely that you'll see me have Perry on because, despite the fact that I've had Mark and Christian, do these little guest spots, what I do not want to do, even though there's a number of people who are fabulous back there and that I've worked with in those camps over the years, what I do not want to do is create a AMC Movie Talk Part 2. I don't want it just feel like that. So, I adore Perry. I think she's just one of the best people in our industry. I really do. I think she's an incredible talent. I think she's incredibly smart. I think she's incredibly savvy. I think she's got great sense. But yeah, you probably won't see me reaching out to many more people outside of that. Dennis, you seem part on, because Dennis and I go back 12 years. Dennis and I have been friends for over a decade. So yeah, you'll probably see Dennis pop up now and again, but Dennis and I go way beyond AMC. Like we were working together and doing things together well before AMC. So anyway, yeah, that's just kind of my thought on that. Let's see. Where are we at here? Anonymous viewer writes, hey guys, saw John's review of The Hunt. Curious about Rob's review. Have you seen it? I can tell you Rob hasn't seen it yet. I was not a fan of The Hunt. It's not that it didn't have its moments. It certainly did have its moments, but it was just way too on the nose to be effective to me. Like it started feeling like the directors saw themselves as a parent and us as the audience as children, and they were very carefully feeding us pablum. Like, here you go. Ooh, here it comes. And like, it was so on the nose and there was like no subtlety to it. And I'm not talking about in the action. In the action, I don't want any subtlety, but in what it was they were trying to make their movie about, it was just so hammered on the head, on the nose, that it lost any impact for me. So I cannot tell you what Rob thought of it, but I do know Rob hasn't had a chance to see it yet, so I can tell you that. All right, Crusher Lyle writes, hey guys, hope you're doing well. I am doing well, Crusher. Thank you for asking. Before he was Obi-Wan Kenobi, Sir Alec Guinness had a brilliant run of films such as The Lady Killers, the Lavender Hill Mob, Our-Man in Havana, and many more. And of course, when I think of Alec Guinness, and it's weird to say this as a lifelong, in my blood Star Wars fan, but the very first thing I think of is River Kwai. That's the first thing I think of. I think a part of that is because in Star Wars, Ben isn't the primary character. He's not even the second character. You can make an argument he's not even the third character, right? So, but in River Kwai, he is so outstanding. And I can't remember if he got an Academy Award for that or not. I don't think he did. He might have, at any rate. So I'm with you on that, Crusher, because when I first think of him, I don't even go to Star Wars at first. So, so listen, guys, there's a couple films and Bridge on the River Kwai more that if you're looking to make some lemonades out of lemons, stuck at home, looking for some classics to get caught up on, there's one for you. And there's a couple for you. The Crusher just gave you some recommendations for as well. So anyway, thanks for bringing that up, man. All right, Phil Corvelli writes, one of two. Saw The Rise of Skywalker. Things I liked. And by the way, Phil, thank you for supporting the channel on that level. That's a really generous tip, man. Things I liked. The visuals. Things I didn't like. Everything else. I really wanted to like it, but damn, was the writing bad. There are so many missed opportunities, so much that isn't explained. Things I wish they did different. Better explanation of how the Emperor is alive. Give Rey her own light earlier. Not sure what that means. Have Kyle actually kill the Emperor and take over fully. Disclose that Finn is a Force user. Well, I mean, okay, to be fair though, Phil, and by the way, you guys know I didn't like Rise of Skywalker. I thought it had some upside. It has its upside. There are some good things about the movie. And I applaud what they were going for, but it did not work for me. The movie I feel fell flat. But to be fair, Phil, some of the things you're talking about are not things that they necessarily did badly. It's just that you wanted them to do it different. It's not that they didn't execute well. It's just that you wanted something different in the movie. That wouldn't have necessarily made the movie better. But yeah, I've got to be in full agreement with you. It just didn't work for me. It did not work for me. And it's unfortunate. Now, somebody asked me on the show the other day, they said, John, do you think you'll buy it even though you don't like that one? And what I said was, well, look, I don't like the prequels, but I own the prequels. I don't have Blu-rays. I mean, I'm a digital guy, so I just get them on, Google Play Store. So they're on my Google Play Store. I can go into my digital device and watch it. I will probably end up getting Rise of Skywalker. I don't like it, but it's Star Wars. I feel like I'm not a completist like Robert Meyer Burnett is, but I feel like, yeah, I mean, it is Star Wars, so I want to at least have it, because at some point I'm going to want to revisit it. Listen, I don't like the prequels. I still revisit them once in a while. Once every couple of years, I'll revisit, the prequels. Say, yeah, has my mind changed? Does it hit me differently today? Because I don't like the prequels. But we'll see. We'll see. But I feel your pain, Phil. Unfortunately, and I was so excited about The Rise of Skywalker because I love Force Awakens. I unapologetically, unabashedly, without any reservation, I love The Force Awakens. And I thought JJ did a great job with that movie. So I was so excited about what he might bring to Rise of Skywalker. And, well, there you go. Everybody's got a bad day at the office. And it's all right. Garen Gilham writes, I just watched the Swedish low-budget sci-fi film Anaria, this dark, high-concept science fiction film that has no sets, was far more engaging than the dark, extremely expensive Star Trek Picard television show. Highly recommend. I've never heard of it. You got to let us know where it is. I'm going to guess it's on Netflix because I've never heard of it. Netflix never promotes the stuff on their own network. And by the way, I unabashedly love Picard. I thought Picard was great. Was it perfect? No. Was it better than Star Trek The Next Generation? No. But I loved watching that show. I had a smile on my face most of the time watching that show. And just hearing Picard do all of his true Picardisms, like even in the finale, like, fear is an incompetent teacher. I was like, that's so Picard. It's such a Picard thing to say. Hey, listen, I know not everybody loved Picard. I know Robert Meyer Burnett did not like Picard. You can't follow him on Twitter and not be reminded of that every 10 seconds. But he did not like Picard. And I do. I found it quite enjoyable. Perfect? No. But I wasn't looking for perfect. I was just looking to be taken back and just enjoy seeing Jean-Luc Picard on screen again, doing his Jean-Luc Picard thing. And I got a kick out of it. But thank you for putting this this on everybody's radar. Go on to see Anaria. I'll have to keep my eye open for it and see if I can come across it as well. Thanks for sharing that, dude. All right, let's see here. Alex Pitt writes, Sony's official message regarding the delay of The Last of Us Part 2 was, we want to make sure everyone plays the game around the world at the same time. I would have thought that now would be the perfect time for that, since a lot of people are stuck at home. And of course, Alex is referring to the fact that Last of Us 2 has been delayed again, The only thing, I thought the production on the game had been completed. The only thing I can figure is that they were still working on the game when the lockdown happened. And maybe this is a matter of they're simply not able to have everybody together in the same room. They're not able to get the teams together to do the final touches and blah, blah. I mean, I don't know that that's the case. I'm purely speculating. I am purely speculating because otherwise, Alex, what you said is right on the nose. If you want to make sure everybody's playing at the same time, wouldn't now be a good time to do it? Like seriously, wouldn't now, while everybody is locked up at home, would now not be the ideal time to release this thing so people can play it? Seems to make sense to me. So my only other thing that I can have to guess at is it's a production issue. That's my only guess right now. And maybe even mass production, stuff like that. That means the supply chains get around. Not everybody downloads their games digitally and still like to get the discs. And yeah, there's a lot of different things with logistics and everything that could come into play here. But in theory, you're right. Now, if you want everybody to play at the same time, now's the time to release it. Star Wars Rocks writes, hey, John, I know I've brought this cartoon before, but I'm not sure if you started watching it yet. But with the current epidemic, you give it a try. It's called Miraculous Tales of Ladybug and Chat Noir, the first 3 seasons. I do remember you bringing this one up before. Are only available on Netflix in the US, but the second and third seasons were split into 2 parts each, as they both have 26 episodes. And by the H in Chat Noir is a silent. Okay. Sorry. By the way, the H in Chat Noir is silent. So it's okay. So it's Cat Noir. Just so you know, it's only spelled like that because it's based in Paris. Yeah, I remember you bringing that up, and I remember going and taking a look at a preview of that. And I thought this kind of looks kind of interesting, but listen, no, unfortunately, no. The reality is, and by the way, Star Wars Rocks, I've had people write to me and say, hey, John, just so you know, I checked out that Chat Noir, apparently it's Cat, that Chat Noir thing somebody mentioned on your show, and I really liked it. So you recommending it actually turned some people onto it. I've got about 10 different things in queue ahead of that. And the real honest reality is I will probably never get around to it. Never get around to it. And here's the interesting thing. The lockdown has not affected me that much in the sense that I work from home already, right? So it's not like, oh, I can't go to work, so I'm on lockdown, so I have extra time to watch a lot of stuff. I'm still working. I still have my regular, 14-hour a day job that I'm doing. So it hasn't actually affected me that much. And that's both good and bad. I really feel it at night though. God, I just, Ann and I were talking the other day. I never would have thought this. What I would give just to go and sit in a coffee shop right now. Oh my God, I would love that. I'd give $1,000 for that right now. What I would give just to go to a restaurant. Hell, just to go to a Chili's. What I wouldn't give just to go and hang out in a Chili's. Now, I know you can still order the food and stuff like that, but I mean, just something I like. Maybe it's because I work at home. I really look forward at the end of the day getting out of the house. Whether it's going to the movies or just going to, there's an outdoor hookah place in Burbank that has this great huge outdoor patio that I like to go to a couple times a week. I take my iPad with me, write up my show notes for the next day from there, just to be out, just to be around other people, all that kind of stuff. And I don't notice it during the days because during the days I'm still in my regular routine, right? but man, I feel it at night. I really feel it, and it really hits me in the evenings. That's when it really, really hits me. That, oh yeah, I've been home all day, and I'm gonna be home all night. So I can't even imagine what it must be like for a lot of you guys who are like, you are also used during the day to being out of the house. And now you're in the house during the day when you're not accustomed to it, and you're stuck in the house at night when you're not accustomed. See, I'm only suffering half of that. That's the night. During the day, everything feels normal to me, except for the fact that Anne's home. Anne's working from home now. That's the only difference. That's the only change up. But during the day, everything's kind of normal for me. So at any rate, I don't actually have a lot of extra time to watch more stuff, so I probably won't get around to it. But listen, Star Wars Rocks, you still did the Lord's work by recommending it, because I have personally had people writing to me saying they got turned on to that show because of you. And who knows, maybe one of these days I will stumble across it and give it a shot. All right, Angel Love just sends in a super chat to be supportive. Thank you, Angel Love. We appreciate that. Ian Simon writes, hey, John and crew. So at least once a year, me and a group of friends talk about the Iron Giant and how we love it so much. And why haven't they given it a live action remake? What are y'all's thoughts on that? Okay, you know what's funny? Somebody brought this exact question up about a month or two ago. And Rob was here, and we talked about that a little bit. I'll be honest with you. I don't think I want an Iron Giant live action film. Now listen, if they wanted to do one, great. I'll give it a shot for sure. But there's something about, I think Iron Giant loses something if it's not in the animation medium. I feel like Iron Giant loses something if it's not in animation. And I can't quantify that. I mean, I can't give you, a list of reasons. This is quantifiably why I feel that way. I just feel like there's something about the magic of the movie that being in the animated medium lends itself better to our suspension of disbelief and just really embracing the heart of the story. I don't know. I just kind of feel like Iron Giant is made to be animated, And I believe Brad Bird did that one, the guy who did The Incredibles. I believe Brad Bird directed that. I just felt like it was conceived of, planned as, and designed to be most effective in the animated medium. And again, let me be clear. I'm not saying I'd be against it if they want to do a live action version. And I'm not saying I wouldn't rush out to see it. Of course I would. But there's just, I don't know, something to me. This sounds silly. I would almost be more into the idea of a animated reboot. Do it again as an animated film. Or hell, give us a Iron Giant 2. I don't know, but for whatever reason, I fear that we would lose a little bit of the magic of it if it was done in live action. I could be wrong about that, but we won't know. Morse Codes writes 2 of 2. I don't remember there being a 1 of 2 Morse Codes, but whatever, we'll read it. Morse Codes writes, starring John Belushi and Richard Pryor. Later, oh man, you must have wrote in something way before this because I do not remember what your 1 of 2 is. John Candy and Chris Farley were touted as the leads before passing away. Will Ferrell and Lily Tomlin were slated for 2005. Oh, I remember the one you were talking about. You were talking about that book that was supposed to be turned into a movie, and then it went through, like we were talking about movies that are just cursed, or movie projects that seem to be cursed. Because we've been talking about like Uncharted, X-Men, New Mutants, I should say, Black Adam. We've been talking about movies projects that feel like they're cursed. And you brought up the name of one. I can't remember, but it was based on a book, I believe. And I remember that. And I remember going, man, I wasn't even familiar with this project, but holy crap, that does sound like it was absolutely cursed, Morris. Sounds absolutely like it was cursed. All right, Mr. TJ Lynn writes, today I recommend my top 5 Clint Eastwood movies, directed films. Number 1, Mystic River, which is great. I believe it got Sean Penn an Academy Award for, I believe Sean Penn won his Academy Award for Best Actor for Mystic River, I believe, at any rate. Number 2, $1 Million Baby. Number 3, Unforgiven. That's my number 1, is Unforgiven. Number 4, The Bridges of Madison County. Number 5, Bloodwork. Not really fans of Flags of Our Fathers and Letters for Iwo Jima. I like those films. Not his top, I agree, not his top ones. Not his best work, but I like those films quite a bit. Yeah, for me, and Mystic River is brilliant. God, I love $1 Million Baby. But Unforgiven to me, I think I'm not ready to say that Unforgiven is the greatest Western of all time, but I believe there's an argument to be made for it. And I know a lot of cinephiles that feel that Unforgiven is the greatest Western of all time. That's just great. I mean, it's crazy. Sometimes you forget about just how great, and there's a lot of really good Clint Eastwood movies not even on your list. We sometimes forget how great Clint Eastwood is as a director until you start listing them off. It's like, yeah, he's done some of the greats, man. He's done some of the greats. TJ also follows up and writes, I would also recommend my top 6 Spielberg films. Number 1, Minority Report. Number 2, Catch Me If You Can. Number 3, Schindler's List, tied with Munich. Munich's great. Number 5, Lincoln. Number 6, Ready Player One. Not really a fan of Jurassic Park, E.T., Jaws, or Indiana Jones. Wow. Okay. It's not every day. Hey, that's the beautiful thing about film, TJ. We all like different things. It's all subjective. Some of the all-time great films to some people, Jurassic Park, E.T., Jaws, Indiana Jones, don't work for you. And that's the beauty of being a film fan. But first of all, can we just take a second and appreciate, and I know I just said this about Clint Eastwood. This is why I keep telling people Steven Spielberg is the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time. Look at that list. And you don't even have some of his best ones on there. You know, my favorite Spielberg movie, I think his greatest movie is Amistad. Not a lot of people talk about that one. I get it. But my favorite Spielberg film is Amistad. Close Encounters of the Third Kind isn't even on your list. There's probably about a bunch of films that he did. I mean, Saving Private Ryan isn't on your list. I mean, just think about that. This one director did all these. That's why I say he's the greatest who's ever done it. He's the greatest who's ever done it. Sabak Dice writes, good list, TJ. Sabak Dice writes, there's a post going viral of this guy who says in 2010, when he was 12, he posted online about a movie idea he had called Evolution, which has the same plot as Chronicle, and is convinced Max Landis ripped it off to make Chronicle. See, and it's BS. I mean, I haven't read the thing, but I won't know for sure until I read it. But my first thing is BS. You don't think anybody else was ever come up about the idea of a found footage movie? I mean, that's essentially what Chronicle is. It's a found footage movie. You didn't think somebody was eventually going to get around to making a found... When you understand how hot found footage movies were, you didn't think that at some point someone's going to get around to making a superhero kind of movie based on found footage? And by the way, this is a great example. And by the way, in law, the onus is going to be on this guy. This guy is going to have to prove, he has to prove that Max Landis saw his post and saw his story and then wrote it based on that story. And that's going to be very difficult to prove. That's going to be really hard to prove that. But again, I haven't read it, so let's shelve that for a second. This brings up a great thing that a lot of people, I always get people writing to me and saying, John, I have this great idea for a movie. Can you give me the contact information of who I send it to the studios? John, I've got the best idea for a new Star Trek film. Who do I write to at Paramount to tell them my idea to get them to turn it into a movie? John, I wrote this incredible script. Who do I send it to? Blah, blah, blah. And here's the thing. Studios do not accept unsolicited scripts. They won't accept them. They'll send them back to you. And they have to do that because, let's say this. If anybody was allowed to send a script off to a studio, okay, let's say they allowed that. And let's say they take your envelope shows up and they put into a box into, like, at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, this huge warehouse, top men, this huge warehouse, as far as the eye can see, of a million crates, each with 1,000 of these scripts in it that never get seen, right? Here's what'll happen. At some point, somebody is going to make a movie that is kind of similar to something you sent to the studio 6 years ago. And you're going to say, I sent this idea to the studio and they accepted it and they have it. And then they made this movie. Look, see, that's why studios don't accept unsolicited scripts. So they do that to protect themselves from a legal point of view. So that's why, no, they don't want you to send them your idea about a new Star Trek movie, because if in 8 years they come up with an idea for a movie that isn't Star Trek, but it just so happens to coincidentally have some similar themes and might be similar in a lot of ways to your story. They don't ever want there to be a case that they took your script and read your script and made their movie without giving you credit. It's just because, there's 1,000 screenplays written in Hollywood every day. Every coffee shop you go to in this town, there's 4 or 5 tables set up, taken up by guys sitting down with their laptops, pounding out a script. Hopefully not pounding out anything else. Not in a public place. Privacy of your own home, gentlemen. Privacy of your own home. Anyway, so just hammering out their own scripts and blah, blah, 1,000 scripts every day. Here's the thing. If the studios accepted all the scripts, every movie that comes out, I guarantee you, at some point in the last 20 years, out of the 20, 30 million scripts that have been written, somebody's going to be able to say, hey, your movie's kind of like my script. That's why they can't do it. So it's an interesting little, object lesson there, Sabak. Thank you for bringing that one up. I'm going to have to go and look into the specifics of that story. Anyway, TJ Lynn writes, sorry if I keep doing this. Last one for today. Hey, dude, I love your lists. The last one for today, I promise. I would also recommend my top 5 Fincher films. Number 1, The Social Network. Robert Meyer Burnett would love hearing that. Number 2, Fight Club with Zodiac. Number 4, Gone Girl. Number 5, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Better than the original. I agree, by the way. I know that made me very unpopular at the time, but when I saw his Girl with the Dragon Tattoo with Daniel Craig and Rooney Mara, I came out saying it. I really like that film, and I came out saying, you know what? I know I'm going to take a lot of crap for this. I like it better than the original. I like this better than the original. I'm totally with you on that. I'm completely with you on that. I thought it was better than the original. I think you know what? I'm not the biggest fan of Zodiac. That's the one film on Fincher's list that a lot of people love that I'm not all that big on. Whatever. I'm not that big on Zodiac. All the other films are great. My favorite one of him is probably Gone Girl, though. I outrageously love that. And so I'm going to go Gone. And by the way, I remember me and Anne and John Schnepp and Holly and one other couple. I can't remember who the other couple was, but there were 3 couples. We went to go see that movie together. And when we came out of the theater, all the guys and the couples were like, you don't think like that, right, honey? It was it was a nervous group of men after watching that movie. I can absolutely guarantee you that. Okay, anyway, next up, an anonymous viewer writes in, is having the X-Men in the MCU essential? I don't think so. If the X-Men hadn't existed in the film already, I'd have no doubts. Their inclusion would be nice, but unless they become the new focus, I feel they'll take a backseat to the Avengers. Are they needed to move forward? No, I don't think so. They're going to, listen, I have no doubt, unfortunately, that the X-Men are going to be in the MCU. I think there's very, very little doubt about that, and I personally think it's a mistake. Now, don't get me wrong. It's Kevin Feige, so it's going to be good. It's Kevin Feige, so it's going to be good. But the reason I think it's a mistake is because I think it would be even better if X-Men were kept in their own universe. If they were kept separate from the MCU. There's already a billion things going on in the MCU. And let's see what they come up with, but there's no really good way to explain without completely taking away the back history and the mythology of what the X-Men are. There's no really good way or common sense way to integrate them into the MCU as it is right now. Now, I know a lot of people want to see Wolverine fighting Hulk. A lot of people want to see, Mr. Fantastic, sitting down and having a conversation with, other members of the Illuminati. I get it. But I honestly think, I think you can bring Fantastic Four into the MCU. That's just 4 characters. But suddenly bringing in this catalog of 100, 200, 300 characters, I don't think it's needed. I think the MCU is just fine without them. Again, I think it'll be good. They'll bring X-Men in and it'll be good. I just personally have the unpopular opinion that I believe that X-Men would be best served and the MCU would be best served if they just made them as 2 separate cinematic universes. I don't know. Again, I know that makes me the unpopular guy. I know I'm taking the unpopular opinion, but I really do think that would be better. But again, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it because it's Kevin Feige. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. So can it be better? Yeah, I think it would be better the other way, but it'll still be good this way. So I'm not gonna lose too much sleep over it. But I agree with you, anonymous viewer. I agree with you. All right, Ryan Lohner writes, to explain more of yesterday's comment, A Confederacy of Dunces is a Pulitzer-winning novel best known for being published years after its author's suicide thanks to his mother's efforts. So wait. His mother's efforts led to his suicide, or his mother's efforts led to the book being published? I'm going to assume you mean by, book being published. Yeah, let's not go dark. Let's think that. So you can add that to the movie adaptations of Being Cursed. I especially recommend it to Guy Ritchie fans. Ooh, I am a Guy Ritchie fan. Not so much for the story as the structure. As like Lock, Stock, and Snatch, the whole book is basically one big clockwork joke. And yes, a comedy book won a Pulitzer. That has to get some people's curiosity. Well, dude, listen, if you want to get my attention, just say Guy Ritchie. And you get my attention. The Gentleman, obviously it's been a curtailed year. The Gentleman is still my favorite movie of the year. I loved his Aladdin, and Snatch is in my top 20 films of all time. Snatch is easily in my top 20 films of all. Doesn't quite crack my top 10, but it's in my top 20 films of all time. I love Snatch, and Lock, Stock is great too. So you want to get my attention? Ryan, you got my attention, because now I'm intrigued. So I'm going to have to look a little bit more into this. Thank you for putting that on the radar, man. All right. Chris Warden writes, 10 of my favorite comedies in no particular order. Number 1, Animal House classic. Number 2, Happy Gilmore. Number 3, Ace Ventura. That's the movie where I fell in love with Courtney Cox. Courtney Cox became my celebrity crush for a while because of Ace Ventura. Number 4, Step Brothers, might be in my top 3. Step Brothers may be in my top 3. Number 5, Something About Mary. Number 6, Fear of a Black Cat. I'm not familiar with that one, to be honest with you. Number 7, 22 Jump Street is hilarious. Number 8, Kingpin. Number 9, Dodgeball. Nobody Makes Me Bleed My Own Blood. Number 10, Team America World Police. See, Team America World Police is an interesting one. That is one that is kind of like Watchmen in a way. Because, Watchmen, there are a lot of people who really love it, and a lot of people who really don't love it when you talk about Watchmen. And I get that. That's cool. So that's perfectly fine. I find the same thing with Team America World Police. I find that there's a lot of people who just love that movie, and a lot of people who just think it's just stupid. Not fun stupid, just stupid. I'm a little bit in the middle on Team America. I'm a little bit in the middle, but man, other than Fear of a Black Cat, which I'm not familiar with, I got to admit, I love all the films on your list, man. Of course, my favorite, though, is 40-Year-Old Virgin. And if 40-Year-Old Virgin is my number 1, my number 1A would probably be Noises Off, with Michael Caine, John Ritter, Christopher Reeve, Carol Burnett, just on and on and on. Fabulous, fabulous movie. That's going to probably be my recommended movie Monday. That will probably be my movie recommendation on Monday. It's going to be Noises Off, but we'll talk about that later. But excellent list, Chris. I love that list. All right, let's move on here. We are at Logan James Kynaston. Sends in a really large super chat. Thank you for the support, man. We appreciate that, dude. A few weeks ago, I finally got round to watching On the Waterfront, Marlon Brando, On the Waterfront. So now I finally understand why it's considered to be one of the greatest films of all time. What's an old classic you were late to the party on? Thanks, John. Ooh, you know what's funny? Here's what's funny is, first of all, On the Waterfront is brilliant. And it is very different from the one I'm going to mention. But the reason it's kind of funny why you asked that question while mentioning On the Waterfront, one that I was late to the party on was another Marlon Brando film, which was Streetcar Named Desire, which I believe was based on a Broadway show. And they're two very different movies with Brando playing two very different characters. But yeah, that was one that I was there's probably one or two other classics that I got around to later than a Streetcar Named Desire, but that's the one that instantly jumps to my mind because you mentioned On the Waterfront. But indeed, it's great. Like a lot of people today, they think of Marlon Brando and their minds understandably go to one of two places, right? They go to The Godfather, totally understand why, argument to be made that it's the greatest film of all time. A lot of people consider it and Godfather Part 2 like greatest films of all time. Understandable why they think about The Godfather. The other one, because of all the craziness surrounding it, is Apocalypse Now. Even though he's not a huge, has a huge part in it, like a lot of people think about that because of all the drama and the craziness that went into that. But Marlon Brando, Academy Award winner, was just remarkable. It got a little crazy. When you get into the Dr. Moreau era, things start getting a little crazy, but people forget that in his heyday, he was a force of nature on screen. He was a force of nature on screen. And I think two of the best examples of that are those two films, On the Waterfront, Streetcar Named Desire. So that's a good one, Logan. Thank you for bringing that up, brother. Okay, by the way, more fodder for you guys if you're looking for some classics to get caught up on while we're in lockdown. There's a couple more good ones for you. Thank you for that, Logan. All right, BW Rosa writes, do you think AMC should sell to Regal to survive? Regal can't afford it. Regal's getting the crap kicked out of them too right now. They're hemorrhaging money too. So Regal is in no position to do that. Not to mention AMC as a company is more valuable than Regal is. So, I mean, one can't buy the other at this point. So no. And even their parent, Regal's parent company, they're getting the crap kicked out of them too right now. So they're not in a position to buy, not to mention acquiring all the debt that comes along with AMC Theaters. So no. Chris Miner writes, also worth watching The Jerk with Steve Martin. Yes. Listen, Steve Martin. You know what the funny thing is? I just saw that special that he did with Martin Short, 2 out of the 3 Amigos. Steve Martin is as fresh and funny today. And he just did a thing on the Oscars too this year. To me, Steve Martin is as fresh and funny today as he's ever been. So whether you're talking about The Jerk, which is remarkable, I quite often go to one of my all-time favorite comedies in my top 10. You guys have heard me mention this before. In my top 10 is the one he did with Michael Caine, whose name has been mentioned a couple of times today. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. And I believe that was directed by Frank Oz. I think Frank Oz actually directed that. I could be wrong, but I think he did. And also Ian McDiarmid, the Emperor Palpatine himself, is also in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. One of the best things ever. Steve Martin, you can never go wrong, but that is one of his best. Chris Miner also writes, a show worth watching at home is the series Dark Side of the Ring. It shows how dark pro wrestling can be, such as Chris Benoit. Dark but fascinating. That's not the Vice 2-part documentary about Chris Benoit, right? That's not the Vice. It's something different. I'm not familiar. Do me a favor, Chris, if you wouldn't mind, if you'd be so kind. Could you email me, john@thejohncampeashow.com? If you wouldn't mind emailing me and sending me a link to what that is, because I grew up watching wrestling. I'd be a sucker for this. That would be nice to see. So thanks for bringing that up, dude. All right. Next up, Brandon writes, hi, John. I know you have talked about the possibility of AMC not surviving this pandemic, but have you seen their stock price? I am writing this at 3:20 a.m. on Saturday, April 4th, and as of right now, their stock price is at $2.27. Should we be worried? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Should be really worried. Their stock price has dropped by 90%. I think I could be wrong. I think their stock peaked this past year at about $20 a share or around there somewhere. And guess what? With reports like this coming out, the one we just talked about, let me see if I can bring it up here again. With reports like this one coming out, what do you think that's going to do to the stock price once the market opens on Monday? You're going to see the stock go down even more. So I don't know if you own stock in AMC. I don't know. Look, I'm no financial expert. Let's be very clear. I'm an idiot when it comes to finances. Other than I'm very good at saving my money. Other than that, I'm an idiot when it comes to finances. Okay. There would be two different arguments to be made here. Number one, it looks like it's just going to go down. Sell your stocks. At the same time, you'd be selling your stocks at $2. Maybe there's an argument to be made that right now you hold on to the stock, because if the studios do come to the rescue, or if another investor comes in and decides to pump $1 billion of cash flow into the company and keep it alive. That could bring the stock up and then would be a good time to sell. But I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm just blah, blah, blah. I don't know what I'm talking about. I have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to finances. None. But if I was owning stock in AMC right now, I would be torn about whether it is time to dump it right now at $2 and something before it drops to 50 cents. And well, it's pretty low at $2. If somebody comes along and invests some things up, it's got nowhere to go but up. And if it can go up to like $7, $8, $9, you'd be getting 4 times more money than you would be if you sold it now. So, I mean, I don't know. But make no mistake about it, AMC is in trouble. They are in trouble. I still think they'll come out the other side of this, but there's a very good real possibility that they won't. And it's a crazy, crazy thing, Brandon. It's a crazy thing. All right, next up, Russell Amador writes, "Hey, John, Disney announced several changes to the movie release schedule." Yes, they did. From the shift dates to all of Phase 4, making of Captain Marvel 2 release date, and announcing a late fourth quarter 2020 for Mulan. Actually, no, it's July, not quarter 4, not Q4. They announced a Mulan is going to release in July, like the end of July, which has me scratching my head. I think it was July 24th. I think that's the release date they announced for Mulan. And that to me has me scratching my head. Because I'm like, wait a minute. There are movies literally just this week that have been moving out of July. And you're moving Mulan into July? Granted, it's the end of July. Really? Does Disney know something we don't know? I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. But I thought that was fascinating. But yeah, so we'll talk about this more on Monday. But remember there's that rumor going around that Black Widow was going to go to VOD? Well, yeah, that's been crushed. So Black Widow has been moved to the Eternals date in November. The Eternals date then got bumped to the Doctor Strange, no, got shifted to the Shang-Chi date. So Shang-Chi got bumped to the Doctor Strange date. And then Doctor Strange got shifted to the Thor date. And then Thor got bumped into 2021. So you still have the same number of Marvel movies coming out in 2021 or in 2020. You still have the same number of movies coming out in 2020. Sorry, Thor got bumped to 2022. So you have Eternals now in 2021 and you have Thor out of 2021. So you still have the same amount of movies. And then they also announced like when Captain Marvel was going to be and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, we're going to analyze this and go more in depth on it on Monday's show. But yeah, big shift. And a part of that was Artemis Fowl is going direct to VOD. And it's funny because you remember a few weeks ago we were talking about, could Marvel move anything to VOD? And so I don't think they're going to move any of them to VOD. I said if any of them are going to move to VOD, it would probably be Artemis Fowl. I still didn't think Artemis Fowl was moving to VOD. Let's be clear on that. But I said if any of them would, it would probably be Artemis Fowl because that movie's going to lose. That movie is tracking at 0. I liked the trailer to Artemis Fowl, but nobody else did. Nobody liked that trailer. It got 0 traction. It had no tracking whatsoever. And if they're going to bump one of their movies with everything getting pushed and you're creating this stockpile of movies, if Disney's going to dump any of them on VOD, obviously it was going to be Artemis Fowl, right? It wasn't going to be Mulan. It wasn't going to be Black Widow. It wasn't going to be any of their big major. It was going to be Artemis Fowl if it was going to be any of them. And, I said the other day, I don't think you're going to see them move X-Men to VOD because I mean, anything can happen. Be clear, anything can happen. I don't think they'll move X-Men to VOD because, look, minimum an X-Men, sorry, by X-Men I mean New Mutants. The minimum New Mutants is going to make is like $150 million. Minimum. And that's a flop. But that's a hell of a lot more money than it'll make if you put it straight to VOD. I don't think you can argue that Artemis Fowl is going to make $150 million minimum. I think there's a really good shot Artemis Fowl was going to completely tank anyway. Like completely tank. And now with the release date pushes, now you're creating this traffic jam of movies moving forward, and maybe they needed to drop one. Listen, I'm still surprised. If you had asked me a week ago, do I think they're going to put Artemis Fowl in VOD? I would have said no. Had you told me a week ago, John, in 1 week, I'm from the future, and in 1 week, Disney will drop one of their films to VOD off the major release schedule. Which one do you think it'll be? Well, obviously it would have been Artemis Fowl. Obviously, that's the one they're going to dump. That's the one that's clearly going to tank and bomb anyway. And it's the least important of their films. So not surprised there, but I am surprised that any of them moved, to be honest with you. But yeah, again, more in-depth stuff for us to talk about on Monday. More in-depth stuff for us to talk about on Monday. All right, let's see here. Damo Davies writes, Jack Nicholson had an off-the-clock agreement for Batman, stating the amount of time he on set each day for shooting, a percentage of the back-end box office, upfront salary, top billing, and time off for Laker games. Was it a good deal for both sides? Well, it was clearly a good deal for Jack. And ultimately, it was obviously a good deal for the movie. The movie did it was a blockbuster in its day. Everybody talked about Jack's Joker. There are still some people today that consider Jack's Joker the best Joker, even better than Heath Ledger's. I don't personally, but his Joker was great, right? This town needs an enema. He was fabulous as Joker. Heath Ledger gave us a very different kind of Joker, and that was perfectly fine. But yeah, I love Jack's Joker. I think it worked out. I think it worked out for them. And plus, Jack was an iconic legend. Right? He was an iconic legend. To get him into a comic book film, it was going to take a lot. And he paved the way for a lot of stuff. So yeah, in hindsight, yeah, it probably did work out for them. All right. Damo Davies officer writes, do you agree with Peter Jackson's rationale for why Saruman's demise was left out of the theatrical version of Lord of the Rings, being too retrospective for the beginning of the third movie and too anticlimactic for the end of the Two Towers? I don't know. The thing about the White Wizard, played by Christopher Lee, was the Lord of the Rings was so packed. It was so packed that you just simply couldn't put everything in it. And I mean, it's a lot like the Tom Bombadil thing, right? Because you guys remember there's no Tom Bombadil in the movies. Is this something that it would have been neat to see? Sure, but was it something the movie needed? Clearly not. And with these three films, is there something we can look back on and say, well, obviously Jackson should have done this differently? Well, obviously not. I mean, all three films are beloved. All three films made tons of money, and all three films got nominated for Best Picture. So I was perfectly fine. I'll be honest with you, I was perfectly fine with it. It didn't bother me in the least. And clearly, it's not something the movies or the stories needed. It clearly didn't need it because it didn't affect anything. So I'll go sure. I mean, I would have to see his comments, Damo, in more detail because I can't think of them off the top of my head. But in principle, I mean, look at the proofs in the pudding. The story flow clearly didn't suffer for the choices that he made. It clearly worked. So I'll say, yeah, I'm not going to second guess him at this point, at least not on that. But I'm sure that just like with Tom Bombadil, I'm sure there are going to be some really big points that other people would bring up counter to that. And I accept that. That's cool. That's the great thing of having good film debate. For me personally, I was fine with it. All right. Damo also writes, would there have been any way to make the prequel Star Wars movies to preserve all the twists and reveals of the original trilogy so you can watch them in chronological order without giving the game away, as it were? Oh, geez. I don't know. I don't know because, you know, the fact of the matter is, just by nature being prequels, like you're going into there's no way you can make the prequels without giving away, hey, that Anakin Skywalker kid becomes Darth Vader. There's no way to give that, to not give that away because it's already been established, right? Like that's an uphill battle. There's no getting around that. There's like, it's kind of like asking, and I understand the question, but it's the same conundrum we're put in with the question by asking, is there any way to make the Titanic and still make it a surprise to audiences that the Titanic sinks? Well, no, everybody knows the Titanic sinks. There's just no getting around that. We all know that Obi-Wan has a history with Anakin. We all know that Anakin becomes Darth Vader. We all know that Palpatine becomes Emperor. We all know that this all sort of stuff happens. So I don't know. I don't know that there is actually any way they could have done that. Yeah, I'm going to say I don't think there's probably any way they could have done that. I think as much as I don't like the prequels, I think they did that part probably as well as could have been done. At least I think so. Maybe you guys can think of some ways they could have done it a little differently. Jump on down to the comments and let me know your thoughts. All right, thanks for that, Damo. All right, McP writes, do you think Disney might need a bailout as well? I don't think so. I mean, listen, Disney is in a precarious position because kind of like AMC that had just done a bunch of expansion, Disney just spent $70 billion buying Fox. That's not a small thing. And remember, the Disney empire is far more than just their little movie division, right? Because I've seen some people online writing things like, how can Disney possibly be in trouble? They just had like the biggest year that a studio's ever had. Disney is so much more than their little movie studio. Little. But Disney is so much more than their movie studio. And Disney is they are a cash generating machine, but if nobody is going out to their parks and their stuff, they are hemorrhaging money and their movies are being in theaters and blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, they're hurting too, but I don't believe to the point that they're going to need like a bailout or anything like that. I think they have enough liquid assets that they are going to be able to ride this through, and they're going to come out limping and they're going to come out battered and bruised, but they will come out of it. So yeah, I don't think so. Then again, I mean, anything can happen right now. Who knows? My initial thought is that they'll be okay. They're going to hurt. They're going to hurt, but they're going to be okay, I believe. All right. James Welsh writes, did you hear that Artemis Fowl at $125 million is going to Disney Plus? Yeah. I mean, again, if any of their films was going to move, it was going to be that one. I'm still surprised. But I guess in hindsight, it makes more sense. Again, it had zero tracking. Everybody hated the trailers. Except for me. I like the trailers, but hey, whatever. Everybody seemed unhappy with it. It had very, very low tracking. This movie was going to really, really flop. And clearly Disney doesn't have any faith in it either. And out of all the movies, if you're going to create this traffic jam of movies now, because everything's getting pushed and compressed up and you got to drop one or two, well, that's the one to drop. So, surprised? Yes, I'm surprised. Shocked? No. Again, like I said before, if you went back 7 days ago and said, John, do you think 1 week from now that Disney will move one of their big major films to VOD? I would have said no. But then if you followed up and said, well, John, if they did move one of them, which one do you think it would be? Well, that's obvious. Artemis Fowl. It's the one that's clearly going to flop. So you might as well do something with it because no one's going to go see that movie apparently. Which again is too bad because I like the trailer. What can I say? Everybody got mad at me when I got online and said I like the trailer to Artemis Fowl. Everybody got pissed off at me. Everybody who read the books, which by the way, I never read the Artemis Fowl books. Everybody who read the Artemis Fowl books instantly made me public enemy number one just because I said I like the trailer. Holy shit, did I piss people off just by saying I like the trailer. People got mad at me. Like, you should see some of this tweets and messages I got from people. How dare, I'm not kidding. The words, how dare you, were literally sent to me over that. But hey, is what it is. So yeah, it's weird times, James. It's weird times. But again, this is a movie that was going to tank anyway, so maybe do something with it. James also writes, think that Spider-Man will move to a later date? Yes. Yes, although I don't think it's a guarantee. I don't think that's a guarantee. But if I had to bet $1 on it, I'd say yes, but I wouldn't be willing to bet anything more than $1. Django19 writes, first time movies I saw, Godfather, Drive, great Ryan Gosling film. Big, my wife's all-time favorite film. The Prestige, Insomnia, couple of Christopher Nolan films there. Unforgiven, my favorite Clint Eastwood. The Dollar Trilogy, of course, more Clint. You Were Never Really Here. Oh, that one was really good. Nobody saw it, by the way. Nobody ever saw that, but whatever. Eternal Sunshine, The Fighter, Wall-E, Kubo and the Two Strings. Still have more to go. I never thought I'd catch up on my list, but it's a good time to do it. Django, you are the poster child, my friend, of making the best of a bad situation. There's no getting around it. Situation sucks. Situation sucks. No getting around it. So what are we going to do? Are we going to sit around and cry about it? Maybe a little bit. But are we also going to try to make the best of the situation? You, sir, are making some lemonade out of the lemons. It doesn't take away all the crap. It doesn't make everything better. But at least you're trying to do something, positive with the time that you got. So good on you for getting caught up, because those are some awesome, awesome films. Whenever I hear about people watching some of these great classic movies for the first time, some people go, what? You've never seen Godfather? To me, I actually feel jealousy. I feel jealousy and envy, because I will never again, for the rest of my life, I will never be able to watch, Unforgiven for the first time. I'll never be able to do that again. I'll never be able to watch The Godfather for the first time again. I'll never be able to have that. I'll never be able to watch Wall-E for the first time. I'll never be able to do that again. And so I actually feel a little bit of envy and jealousy. So I'm a little bit envious and jealous, Django, that you had that chance to do that. So good on you. Jose Miaz writes, will New Mutants go to Disney Plus? Listen, I would have said this. I'm going to say the same thing about New Mutants that I was going to say that I would have said about Artemis Fowl 1 week ago. No. But if a genie were to come to me and say, but John, 1 month from now, another one of the Disney films will be dropped to Disney Plus or VOD. Which one do you think it'll be? Then I would say probably New Mutants. But here's the difference between New Mutants and Artemis Fowl. And again, anything can happen. Anything can happen. The reason I still don't think that New Mutants will move is because that movie, if it made $150 million at the box office, that's a flop. But guess what? It's still $150 million. I don't think you can make the argument that Artemis Fowl would have cleared that. But I think minimum, New Mutants, I'm not saying New Mutants is going to be a $500 million movie. Do not misquote me. But I think at minimum makes 150. And even though that's still a flop, that's 150 million more they're going to get from it than if they just drop it on Disney Plus. Because let's be honest here. You think Disney Plus, this is the thing. Do you think Disney Plus's subscriber number is going to double because they put New Mutants on it? I don't think so. So there's not a lot of upside here. So they can still recover a lot of money by dropping it in theaters. To me, it just makes business sense to put it out. With Artemis Fowl, I still thought they would have put Artemis Fowl in theaters. I still thought that. Make no mistake about it. I still thought they would have done that. But it makes more financial sense because Artemis Fowl was going to tank at the theaters. It was going to tank badly. And I don't think there is a minimum amount of money it was going to make at the box office. Unlike New Mutants, I think there's a minimum amount it'll make. I'm not so sure about that with Artemis Fowl. So, yeah, I just don't see the business case. But again, to counter my own argument, I would have said, a week ago, I still would have said, if any movie's going to get dropped, it's going to be Artemis Fowl, but I still don't think they'll drop Artemis Fowl. And here we are. Here we are. They dropped it. I'm not surprised it's that movie, but I'm still kind of surprised. Okay. Let's keep going here. Django19 writes, binge the Dollar Trilogy in 1 day, and I enjoyed the first two more. Why am I freezing on the order that they came out in? I feel like I actually like the third one more. But anyway, that's me. But you're getting between Unforgiven and those, you're just breezing through some classics on that, dude. Let's see. Django also writes, did you ever see Brothers with Tobey Maguire and Jake Gyllenhaal? I want to say no. Let me, hold a second. Let's see here. I don't think I have. Oh, wait a minute. That's the one where, okay. It's the one where like the one brother was a soldier and they thought he was dead. And then the other one is his brother. And then him and his brother's widow fall in love. And then he comes back. Is that the one? Hold on a second. Let me just read okay. Hold on a second. A young man confronts his older brother's wife and children after he goes missing in Afghanistan. Okay, that is the one. Okay. And it also has Natalie Portman in it. And I don't remember. It's funny. I know exactly the movie, and I can't even remember if I saw it or not. I feel like I'm looking at the poster now and I'm like, oh, I saw this movie and I know about the movie and I know what the movie's about, but I can't recall sitting in a theater. You guys ever have movies like that? It's like, oh yeah, I know that movie. And you think to yourself, your first reaction is, oh yeah, I saw it. But then you're trying to think, wait a minute, do I actually recall sitting down in a movie theater and watching it? I feel like I've seen the movie, but I cannot remember seeing the movie. So you know what? Just to play it safe, Django, I'm going to say maybe that's one I missed. Came out in 2009. So I'm going to guess it's one I missed. I think. Now I'll watch this. I'll remember watching it sometime later. But yeah, I'm going to say I did not watch that one. All right. Anthony Lucalano writes, I've been thinking about getting into French cinema this year. Are there any French films that you would recommend? I'm planning on starting with Amélie. Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, Amélie, it was either the first or one of the first 3 or 4 movies that I ever gave a 10 out of 10 to. I think, now, I haven't given numerical scores to my movie reviews in a few years now, but in all the time that I would give scores in my movie reviews, I think there's only 7, 8, 9 times that I ever gave 10 out of 10s. And Amélie was either the first or one of the first. It's a so other French film that jumps off the top of my head. I can't think of, 1 or 2 just came to my mind, but they're not French. They're French Canadian, the ones I'm thinking of, which is not the same. But Amélie was definitely the absolute one I was going to go to on that. That was the first one I was going to go to, and that is the place to start. It is a glorious, wonderful, delightful, special movie. So do watch that and do enjoy yourself, man. All right. Frankie G writes, looking through Netflix award-winning films, here are some you have mentioned recently in the recent past. The Shawshank Redemption, Road to Perdition, The Social Network, Inception, Hell or High Water, which you gotta see. A lot of you guys didn't see Hell or High Water. You gotta watch that one. Train to Busan, which the sequel for the trailer for the sequel, I should say, just came out. There Will Be Blood, Silver Linings Playbook, where is Frankie G? The King's Speech, Dallas Buyers Club, Moonlight. My recommendations: Matrix Trilogy, or at least Matrix 1. Taxi, although I like Matrix 2. I know a lot of people don't. I like Matrix 2. Taxi Driver, Goodfellas, Once Upon a Time in the West, Sin City, Ex Machina, Pan's Labyrinth, Sling Blade. We just talked about that one the other day too. Cloverfield, not a big Cloverfield fan, gotta say. Not a huge Cloverfield fan. The Pianist, amazing one, Adrian Brody, an Academy Award. Mystic River, which we just talked about a little bit earlier. Room, and one of my top 5, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I love that movie. Others, Blade Runner, Her, Chasing Amy. I love Chasing Amy. Probably my second favorite Kevin Smith film is Chasing Amy. Incredibles 1 and 2, Lethal Weapon, The Witch. A lot of people didn't like The Witch. Robert and I talk about this all the time. A lot of people didn't like The Witch. I thought The Witch was great. Anyway, so my comrades in arms, go forth and view. I work in health IT. I've had to actually work harder during this time. I believe that, Frankie. And listen, to you and all your people who work with you, thank you for all the work that you're doing right now, particularly in this time. Healthcare and everybody else who's doing jobs that we always take for granted, but you doing your jobs is what helping us keep going right now. Thank you to all you guys for doing what you do. A big tip of the cap and a big thank you to all of you. And that is a great list of stuff. And if all that stuff's on Netflix, man, you got a lot of good stuff to watch, man. A lot of good stuff to watch. Thank you for giving that. You know what? By the way, we did a watch party. We did a watch-along watch party of Avengers Infinity War last week. And we packed out the server, I think. And it was a lot of fun. And so we're going to do another Netflix watch party on Monday. We're going to do a Netflix watch party on Monday. So I'm going to post on my Twitter. Make sure you guys are following me at John Campea. So that's my Twitter, at John Campea. And tomorrow I'm going to put up a poll with 4 movies. And you guys vote. You guys vote which of the 4 we should watch. They'll all be good movies. And then Monday late afternoon, we'll do another Netflix watch party and watch it together. And maybe a couple of these ones that you just mentioned, Frankie G, will pop up on that possibility list. So thank you for sending that in, man. That's a great list of films. All right. Django 19 writes, you can see one now. The rest get pushed back a year from... Okay, you can see one now. The rest get pushed back a year from the original release date. I know Quiet Place 2 would be your choice. So other than that, Wonder Woman 84, Black Widow, Mulan, Tenet, No Time to Die, Venom 2, Dune, Soul, Top Gun, Godzilla vs. Kong, and Mortal Kombat. Okay, so I can take out Mortal Kombat. I'm interested in seeing it, but again, first-time director, first-time screenwriter. I'm a little bit nervous about it. I'm curious. I want to see it, but I can take that one out. Godzilla vs. Kong, I was not a big fan of Godzilla King of the Monsters, so we'll take that one out. Top Gun, I've already waited like decades for it, so I can wait a little bit longer. I'll take that one out. Soul, it's Pixar. I'm excited about it, but I still don't know enough about it. And I do want to see it. I'm excited about it, but I'll take that one out. That leaves Dune, Venom 2, which I love Venom more than most people, so I'm going to keep that in the list right now. No Time to Die, Tenet, Mulan, Black Widow, Wonder Woman. I am really looking forward to all of those. And you're right. My number one would be A Quiet Place. If I could watch one movie right now, it would be A Quiet Place 2. But that aside, if I had to pick only one of these, because I want to watch all of these, but if I could only pick one of these that I get to watch right now, and I'm not necessarily saying the one I'm going to pick is necessarily going to be the best movie, okay? Just that for whatever reason, it's the one I'm most pumped about seeing right now. Because I'm super stoked about Mulan. And I'm really stoked because Patty Jenkins, I'm really stoked about Wonder Woman 84. Christopher Nolan, Tenet, obviously. Look, I'm not saying it's going to be the best one. I'll be honest with you. I'm guilty here. If some studio guy called me right now and said, hey, Campea, we're going to let you watch. We'll give you a download link so you can watch one movie right now. Which one do you want to watch? I'd probably watch Venom 2. Look, I know Tenet's going to be better. No Time to Die is probably going to be better. Mulan's probably going to be better. Dune's going to be better. But I don't know why, with Andy Serkis attached to it and Woody Harrelson in there being Carnage, I don't know. I'm just really stoked about seeing Venom 2. So again, do not hold this against me. I'm not saying it's going to be the best movie out of this bunch. But if I could watch one today, I'd probably ask for Venom 2. I don't know. If you ask me the same question tomorrow, I might say something different. Okay, let's see. Anthony Lucalano writes, at the moment, I'm making my way through some South Korean films, is a good one to do. Since seeing Parasite last year, so far I've seen Train to Busan, The Villainess. I'm planning on watching The Host tonight, which is also a Bong Joon-ho film, who directed Parasite. Another really, really, really good one. Listen, I've a friend of mine named Todd Brown, who later went on to establish what was probably the best international film site in the world called twitchfilm.net. Not to be confused with the gaming site Twitch. But when the gaming site Twitch got so popular, they eventually decided to change the name of their website, twitchfilm.net, to I can't remember what they call it now. But I remember Todd is really responsible for me getting into like a lot of Asian cinema. Actually, Todd's the one who introduced me to Infernal Affairs, which is now my number one all-time favorite cop movie. Infernal Affairs, my number one all-time favorite cop movie, and is the basis for which Marty Scorsese went on to make The Departed, which then won Best Picture at the Academy Awards, proving that remakes and reboots can be fantastic. Anyway, there's that. But yeah, The Host is a fun one to do. But what I keep telling people who want to check out The Host, because there's a lot of people saying they want to watch The Host after Parasite, right? Remember, The Host came out a while ago. Keep that in mind when you're seeing the visual effects, because the visual effects were really great for their time. So keep in mind, this movie wasn't made yesterday, and keep that in mind when you're watching that, because the visual effects at the time were great. So just really keep that in mind. Anyway, thanks for sending that in, Anthony. All right, let's see. Anthony also writes, I guess you could say my New Year's resolution for 2020 is to see as many classic and foreign films that I haven't seen before this year as I possibly can. It's a big cinematic world out there. And Anthony, that is the exact attitude a good film fan should have. There's so much great stuff out there. And listen, one of the things I get worried about are film fandoms sometimes, and you guys have probably heard me talk about this before, is the fact that I felt like for a very, very long time, a part of my job was trying to convince people to give comic book movies a chance. You know, I felt like for a long time, one of the unofficial responsibilities on my job list was to try to talk people into trying out comic book movies because they can be really good and they can be really fun. Well, then they became the biggest things in the world. And then came a point where I felt like part of my job was to try to convince people to watch movies other than comic book movies, right? Guys, there's so much great film out there. And now is the time, especially Anthony, now's a good chance to get caught up on that stuff. So that's the exact sort of attitude that we as film fans should have. Love the stuff we love, but then also broaden our horizons a little bit and try some other stuff too, including a lot of great classics, both domestic and internationally. All right. But John writes, you should have a playlist of all the movies you recommend at home. It would be a cool list to look at later. Oh, yeah. You know what? That's a good idea. That's actually a really good idea. I'm going to try to remember to do that. I should put together like a little post on my blog. That's just a running list of movies to watch at home that and add to it like every day that we do stuff. That's actually not a bad idea. I'm going to try to keep that in mind. That's not a bad idea. All right. Tristan Thorpe writes, it's cool that they're bringing Barbara Gordon in Titan season 3. Sucks that I tapped out after season 2. Half the season was good, I'll be honest. Besides the writing, my main problem with the show, I just don't care about any of the characters. And you know what, Tristan? That's kind of the reason, you just kind of nailed the reason about why I kind of tapped out, after season 1. I tapped out after season 1. I just didn't care about any of the characters. And it just, I had see, some people thought it was too dark and gritty. I don't mind dark and gritty as long as your story and your characters fit the tone you're trying to do. And I just felt it didn't. And I wanted to like Titans, but I didn't. Oddly enough, I thought I would like Titans and I thought I would hate Doom Patrol. And I ended up loving Doom Patrol and not liking Titans. So, hey, go figure. All right, Jetfire97 writes, hey, John, I wanted to say that the Infinity War watch party was pretty cool. I had fun with that. I'm looking forward to any more you may do in the future. Well, thank you so much. I was just talking about that, Jetfire. Thank you so much for bringing that up. And yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that watch along party with everybody. It was so great and so fun, and obviously a really good movie to do it with. And we'll do it again. And, you know, we're all stuck at home anyway. We might as well do it again, and we will do it again. So thanks for that, Jetfire. I appreciate that. Anthony Lucalano writes, just finished watching The Host, and I really liked it. You weren't wrong about the special effects. Crazy good for 2006. It was absolutely nutty for 2006. Like, really. Yeah, and that's why I keep telling people, you got to keep this in mind. Because a lot of people are going to watch The Host for the first time and think, yeah, the visual effects are okay. You got to remember, these are 14-year-old visual effects. At the time, it was like my jaw was on the floor, seeing what they were pulling off of their visual effects at that point, because that was really, really kind of ahead of its time in many ways. All right, thanks for that, Anthony. Tristan Thorpe writes, for the Obi-Wan series news, I'm a little nervous because according to IMDb, Joby Harold only has 5 writing credits. Not sure if this was a good choice, but maybe they see something I'm not seeing. Plus, Deborah Chow is still involved, so there's hope. Yeah, as long as Deborah Chow is still the director, I'm going to keep hope high. And listen, yeah, only 5 credits. This is the thing. There are people who make so-and-so the director when somebody's never directed anything. This guy has 5 legit credits to his name, plus an upcoming project that he's worked on, right? And so I'm good with it. Look, he's not an Academy Award winning writer or anything like that, but I'm good with it. It must mean they've got the pitch that they wanted. Deborah Chow's in there to still give oversight, so I'm good with it. Am I jumping over the moon about them bringing on this dude to write? No, not jumping over the moon about it, but it's a perfectly fine pick. It's a perfectly fine pick. So we'll see how it turns out. We will see how it turns out, but for now I'm okay with it. Sorry guys, my voice is starting to go. We've been going a little over an hour and a half now. Let's get through a couple more, and then we're going to take just a little bit of a couple of minute break, guys. Cinema Reviews writes, have you watched the Harley Quinn Season 2 premiere yet? No, but Ann and I are going to do that tomorrow. We're not doing it today. We didn't do it last night because we were playing a lot of video games. Then we're not doing that tonight because we are having a virtual birthday party for Ann. We're going to get a bunch of our friends. We're going to use Zoom multi-video conference, and we've got some video games that you can play remotely, and we're going to play some games together and all celebrate Anne's birthday, because Anne's birthday was a couple of days ago. So we're going to all celebrate it tonight, having a big virtual birthday party, doing that tonight. So tomorrow, Ann and I are going to watch the start of Harley Quinn season 2, and I'm excited. Very excited about that. Okay, let's see. Daniel Hinoja writes, watch Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. So underrated. Listen, look, I understand it. Coming out of Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, right? Which was terrible. And then we get Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. And I think it was even written by the same guy. I can't remember. There was every reason in the world to believe that was going to suck. All right? Every reason in the world to believe that was going to suck. You would be completely forgiven if you just assumed that movie was going to suck. And it was delightful. I had a lot of fun with Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies. I really did. It was so much more fun than I thought it was going to be. And I'll be honest with you, I only went to the press screening because it was close. The screening I went to was actually at the AMC Burbank 16, which was just a 12-minute walk up the street for me. So it was close. I didn't have to drive across town for it. And I understood that a couple of the cast were going to be there to introduce the film and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I like the cast. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I went to it, expecting nothing out of it. And I thought it was delightful. I really did. I thought it was a fun little movie. But you would be totally forgiven if you took a pass on it because, of course, it looks stupid. And after coming off the heels of Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, it was going to be terrible, right? Ended up being really nice. Anyway, Ben Rayner writes, hi, John. Hope you're staying safe. I am. Thank you very much. So with this MCU movies moving and this virus issue, I have to ask about the Disney Plus shows. Do you think they will be delayed too? Do you think if they are so connected to the MCU movies, do you think that that's a mistake? Do you think the shows and movies should be able to survive without relying on each other? Yes. The shows should not have to wait for the movies to come out to be released, right? And vice versa, in my opinion. What are your thoughts? Hope you and Ann are staying safe. We are staying safe. Now, there are two different things you have to take in consideration, though, Ben. All right? Two different things. Number one, there is having the shows and the movies so connected that you can't follow what's going to happen in the movie unless you're also watching the show. That is a total mistake. And I don't think they're going to do that. However, there is a more surface level thing of like, say, hey, let's say, I don't know, they decided to make, let me just pull a name out of the hat here. Let's say they decided to make another Hulk movie, right? For whatever reason, let's pretend Disney and Universal came to an agreement and Disney was now allowed to do a Hulk movie. Okay. And let's say the Hulk movie isn't totally tied in with She-Hulk. Like, it's not like you can't watch the Hulk movie unless you watch She-Hulk because you'll be totally lost. But let's say something happens in She-Hulk. Let's say Chicago gets destroyed by a giant meteor in She-Hulk, right? Let's say Chicago gets destroyed by a big meteor in She-Hulk. And so then as Hulk comes out, it's just a part of the cinematic universe that, oh yeah, Chicago was destroyed. That will make it awkward to have the Hulk movie come out before the She-Hulk show. So there is deep connection where you just can't understand what's going on unless you watch everything. I don't think they'll do that. That would be a mistake. But then there's just some very basic level stuff of like a significant event happens in one that's going to have a ramification for the world that they live in. And therefore you want to make sure things come out in a certain order. Not that you have to watch She-Hulk in order to watch Hulk, but it would be a little bit weird with the time, right? So yeah, how tied in they're going to make it is going to be yet to be seen. I think if Kevin Feige is smart, and he obviously is, he will do the shows the same way he's done the movies. You'll get a better experience if you've seen the other movies, but you're totally fine watching them even if you haven't seen the other movies. Erin Cummings is a great example of that, right? She had basically watched hardly any of the MCU films when Endgame was coming out. I gave her a list of 4 or 5 movies to watch before Endgame came out. And then she sat down and watched Endgame, and she totally was able to follow everything that was going on. Yes, there was probably some nuances that she missed out on because she hadn't seen the previous ones, but she was totally able to follow along, no problem. This whole idea is you have to watch all the MCU movies in order to watch the next. No, you don't. Erin Cummings is perfect proof of that. And so I think Kevin Feige will bring the same mentality of that to the Disney Plus shows. That, hey, you'll get a richer experience out of it if you follow all of the MCU. But if you're new here and you're just jumping in on this, you'll be perfectly fine. We will do this show in such a way that we will get you up to speed and you'll be able to enjoy this show even on its own. And that's the way they've handled all their movies as well. So I believe they're going to bring that sort of a mentality to it as they move forward. All right, guys. I am going to take a quick break here. And run down because my throat's starting to get a little bit sore. I'm going to stretch my legs, rest the vocal cords. I really desperately need to go and refill my drink. So I'm going to do that. So you guys take the next couple of minutes, use the bathroom, talk amongst yourselves. Hang tight, guys. Don't go anywhere. I will be right back. We'll see you in just a couple of minutes. guys, and we are back. Thank you for your patience and indulgence as I rested the vocal cords there for a second, went and refilled my drink. Now let's jump right back into it and keep on rolling. And we're going to pick things up here with, that was Ben Rayner that we did last. And next up, we got Nerd Talk Rights. Have you seen the 1986 film Night Mother, starring Sissy Spacek and Anne Bancroft? If you have, what's your thoughts? If not, I highly recommend it. No, it's not that movie. Is that the movie where the daughter is saying they're going to commit suicide before morning? Hold on a second. If that's the movie, then I have seen it. Let me just bring it up here. What's it called again? Night Mother. That's the wrong film. Oh no, it is. Okay, that is the one. Yes, the one with Sissy. Yes. So heartbreaking. So it's basically the story about this woman who's like, everything's gone wrong. Failed marriage. She has personal issues, trouble with her kid, and she tells her mother that she's going to end her life before morning. And then it's basically like the mother trying to convince her daughter, trying to figure out, get into her head and stuff like that. It's a nice little movie. It's a special movie. I thought it could have been better, but it's a nice little movie. It really is. It's an older film. I mean, I saw that when I didn't see it in theaters because I think I was like 13 when it came out in theaters. But I saw it years later. Somebody showed it to me once. It's a nice little movie if I remember right. I don't think I ever saw it twice. So it's been a lot of time since I've seen it though. But that's a deep cut, Nerd Talk. That's a deep cut. Chris Warden writes, and thank you for the super chat, man. I appreciate that. And here's 10 guilty pleasure movies of mine. I love guilty pleasure movie lists. Number 1, Mortal Kombat. Yeah, but I love it too. I love Mortal Kombat. It's a terrible movie that I love. Love that movie. Number 2, Transformers 2 through 5. I hate those movies, but that's why they're guilty pleasures. Number 3, Porky's. I think a lot of people consider Porky's a classic. Number 4, Alien versus Predator. Number 5, Pirates 2 through 5. Number 6, Resident Evil franchise. Yeah, a lot of people do like the Resident Evil franchise. I'm not one of them. Number 7, Grown Ups 1 and 2. Whew, you are really embracing the definition of guilty pleasure movies here, dude. You're really embracing the notion of guilty pleasure movies. Number 8, Freddy versus Jason. Number 9, Van Damme's Street Fighter. Number 10, Tango and Cash. I think a lot of people like Tango and Cash. There's a classic element to Tango and Cash. I like Tango and Cash. All right, that's the thing. At least you understand the proper use of guilty pleasure. Because too many people say, yeah, this Academy Award winning film is a guilty pleasure. That's not what guilty pleasure is. A movie that you openly and proudly say you like, despite the fact that just about everybody else doesn't like it. That's what a guilty pleasure movie is. And Chris Warden, you have completely embraced what that is. And good on you for it. Good on you for it. All right, next up, Esteval Garcia writes, You don't know how much I miss going to the theater. Dude, you and me both. You don't know how much I miss going to the theater, John. I miss booking 3 A-list movies. AMC will suffer, but they will open. Movie studios will have to help. I agree. Like, again, I think there is a very legitimate chance AMC never opens their doors again. But I believe, despite that, I agree. I think if nothing else, I think movie studios have to step in for their own self-preservation. Studios need AMC to stay open. They need it. So I think if nothing else, that will come happen. And I'm with you, dude. I am so missing going to the movie theaters. It's my favorite thing to do. I love going to the movies. And not being able to do that right now is killing me, dude. You're killing me, Smalls. All right. Vicarious writes, Hey, John. Hope you're doing well. I am doing well, sir. Thank you very much. My last movie recommendation was Shaolin 2011. This time, I wanted to recommend a very underrated war film, The Lost Battalion 2001, based on a true story of a battalion that got trapped behind enemy lines during World War I. I know this movie, and I really enjoyed it too. Hold on a second. Let me just bring up the cast. Sorry, I put in the wrong thing. There we go. Lost Battalion. Oh, this is why you double check. This happens to me all the time. Oh, I know this movie. Oh shit, this isn't the movie I was thinking of. This is the movie with Ricky Schroeder. I am familiar with this film, but this one I did not see. I was thinking it was a totally different movie. Oh yeah, man, I know the movie. I love that movie. Oh, wait a minute. This is not a movie. This was not the movie I was thinking of. This is why it's important to look things up, even while you're doing a show live. I am familiar with this film that I never did get around to watching. Anyway, fact-based war drama about an American battalion of over 500 men, which gets trapped behind enemy lines in the Argonne Forest in October of 1918 France during the closing weeks of World War I, which sounds really good. Again, it's a film I am familiar with. I did not see it myself, but thank you for putting that on people's radars, Vicarious. It's a good thing I didn't start talking about the movie because I would have been talking about the wrong one. All right, Jetfire97 writes, MCU release drought hasn't been this long since 2009. Yeah, with the release bump, particularly of Black Widow. Yeah, because it's been a beat. It's been a beat since Spider-Man. And it's going to be longer. I mean, the next MCU movie is coming out in November. That's a long drought, man, for the MCU lately. And that's when the next Black Widow's been bumped to November. That's going to be the next one. It's hard to think of it in those terms, but it's going to be a stretch, dude. It's going to be a stretch. Esteval Garcia writes, watching Spider-Man 2 train scene, best fight ever. I don't think the best fight ever, but a great sequence. And one of the reasons why I think Spider-Man 2 still holds as one of the greatest comic book movies ever. I still have it in my top 10. It's a Marvel movie, and that scene is definitely one of the reasons. Krypton Caged writes, hey, John, yesterday was supposed to be the release of the Cyborg solo movie, which was announced 6 years ago in 2014. We showed our love by tweeting, and we're trending around the world with 15,000 tweets. Ray Fisher thanked everyone for the support with the tweet. It's crazy to think it has been 6 years since they first released the DC slate. It's been a very patience-testing ride, hasn't it? Krypton, I think that phrase is probably the most applicable phrase ever when it comes to people wanting to love the DCU. It's been patience testing. It's been patience testing. And it has. Now, I'm somebody who, aside from Birds of Prey, which I did not enjoy, unfortunately, I've liked all the DCU movies. And I'm super stoked for Wonder Woman and all that kind of stuff. But even for the most optimistic of people, it has been patience testing. You know, DC came out and announced all these films, and almost none of them came to be. And you know what? They didn't do as much. I like Justice League. They didn't do a great job with the Victor character. They didn't do a great job with the Cyborg character. And so I don't know that there would have been a lot of interest. To be honest with you, I don't know that there would have been a lot of interest amongst the general public to watch a Cyborg standalone movie. But it does gotta be frustrating. You tell us the movie's coming. You've done it this to us a lot of times, and all of a sudden it's not. I mean, I feel your pain, man. It must be incredibly frustrating. All right, Zachary Bartran sends in a really large tip. Thank you so much for the support on that level, Zachary. I appreciate that, man. Hello, John. It's been a while, just stopping in to say hi and hope all is well. It is going well. Thank you so much, sir. I found myself very busy during quarantine. You never realize how much work around the house there is until you're home every day. Haven't missed listening to a show, though. Well, it's good to have you around. You know what? That's, again, making lemonade out of lemons. There's no getting around. We're in a terrible situation. We're not trying to minimize that. But hey, if you can find some positive silver linings, that's one of them. Getting some housework done, getting some work done around the house. It's a great thing to do. And I'm sure people are finding projects they didn't even think about to get done. So getting caught up on movies, getting caught up on housework, getting caught up on a whole bunch of stuff. Make some productive use. The only thing I would tell my friends and family is just don't sit on your ass doing nothing. That's all. Do something semi-productive. Email people you haven't emailed in a while. Get caught up on some classics. Do some work around the house. Jump on like Skillshare or jump on what's that other teaching site that's sponsored by LinkedIn now? It's got a girl's name, but anyway, jump on one of these sites. Start learning something new. Learn a piece of software. Learn how to do a DIY project at home. I mean, just do something productive with your time. That's the best thing to do, and it sounds like you're taking advantage of that, Zachary. So good on you, and good to have you here, and thanks for writing in, man. All right, next up, Undead Sick writes, Hey, John, I heard you talk the other day about the possibility of Abomination, Leader, and Betty Ross returning to the MCU. And I have to say, I don't think it's going to happen. It's just a little too late for that with a 12-year-old time gap. There's only so long you can string fans along before they lose interest. Plus, by the time they might bring them back into the fold, people have already forgotten who they are. Also, Thanos, biggest dick tease in cinema ever. I disagree with you, Undead, on several levels. 12 years is too long to bring something back. Star Wars would like to have a word. Just saying. So no, it's not too long of a gap. And besides, it's not about, like, my whole proposition about, and by the way, I am not saying they are definitely going to bring back Abomination or Leader or Betty Ross. I'm not saying they're definitely going to do that. Not in the least. What I am saying is, I think there is a chance that they do it, but it's not because they're beloved fan characters. That's not why. I think you bring them back because they are great characters, not because everybody's screaming for them to come back, but because they are great characters. Abomination represents an absolute Hulk level threat. Abomination represents a Hulk level threat. Or an Avengers level threat. That's what Abomination represents. There's not a lot of characters out there that you can legitimately have that would be a great foil for Hulk, that could give you those types of action sequences and stuff like that. I mean, and then you can use Abomination would be great in a Hulk show or a Hulk movie, whether it's She-Hulk or regular Hulk. He'd be great in a Thor story because he'd be able to go toe-to-toe with Thor. You could have him as a great foil in a team-up movie. Leader is obviously a character with loads of potential. So you misunderstand. To me, it's not, oh, you got to bring them back because they were these big dangling threads and the audience loved them and you have to. That's not why I'm saying it. I'm saying it just because what they represent as characters and how useful they would be in the MCU, if used the right way. If used the right way. And also, I'm not saying I'm guaranteeing that they are coming back, not at all, but I think there is a legit chance because of just how useful those characters have been. And I think there is a reason why Kevin Feige has every once in a while dropped little mentions of Blonsky still being on the raft and things like that. I think he's kept that a little bit alive. And we will see what happens. We'll see again, they may never use them again. They absolutely may not. But I think there's a chance they will, and I think they'd be very, very useful. I think they'd be great tools in Kevin Feige's tool belt moving forward. I really, really do. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, man. Undead Sick also writes, hey, pardon me. Hey, John. Sorry, went down the wrong pipe. There we go. Hey, John. I already told you I hated Spider-Man Homecoming and Far From Home. That said, reading that there might be a crossover with Daredevil has piqued my interest. My friendly neighborhood Spider-Man in a movie with Matt Murdock, I'd watch it. Yeah, I don't believe that at all. I don't believe that story in the least, even remotely. Remember, Kevin Smith brought that up, but it turned out he was only referencing an old rumor that came out years ago from, let's just say, a very unreliable source. So nothing's impossible. Nothing's impossible. But I would honestly not get your hopes up about that at all. I do not believe Charlie Cox is coming back as Daredevil. I ain't going to tell you to bet the house against it, and I'm not telling you there's absolutely no hope for it. Not at all. This is Kevin Feige. This is the MCU. This is the movie business. Anything can happen. But don't put any of your eggs in that basket, though. Don't hold your breath for that, because it doesn't look like that's true or real in the least. All right, Damo Davies writes, they can be a great people, Kal-El. Oh, this is one of the great lines from Man of Steel. They wish to be. They only lack the light to show the way. For this reason, above all, their capacity for good, I have sent them you, my only son. Russell Crowe, maybe my favorite actor. Not the best actor of all time, but probably my favorite actor. One of the best actors today, I believe, as Jor-El, talking in the most underrated comic book movie of all time, Man of Steel. Love that line. I could watch that movie every month. All right, Daniel Rahimi writes, AMC theaters will be just fine after this is over. At the end of everything usually always works out. Jesus, what's with the negativity here? Good Lord. In a few months from now, I'll be watching Tenet in an AMC theater laughing about this. Here's the thing, Daniel. You can't, I appreciate the positivity. But you can't stick your head in the sand and pretend like, la, 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 I don't see all the problems, la, la, la. They are $5 billion in debt. You have the actual financial institutions that carry a lot of that debt that have just downgraded them, saying, we do not believe they're going to come out of this. These are people who actually know the finances of industry. Not me, not you, the actual people who know the finances of the industry are saying we have serious doubts. They are going to run out of cash. They're going to run out of liquidity. They're not going to be able to stay alive. They are going to, in their phrases, they're going to breach. Now remember, I say that believing that somebody will come to the rescue, whether it's a third party or whether it's the studios themselves, because I believe it's in the studio's best interest to make sure AMC stays afloat. But you are being naive. And I say that with all love, brother. I think we would be naive to not look at the real situation and the real facts of the situation that AMC is in right now. And we would be naive not to go, yeah, there is a chance, a very real chance on the board that AMC does not open their doors again. I believe they will. I believe they will. I believe if nothing else, the studios will have to come to the rescue, but we cannot be naive and just pretend like, you know, gummy bears are going to rain from a rainbow sky and everything is happy and wonderful and yay. This is really, really serious. It's real serious. And I'm talking also as somebody who worked in that corporation, in that company for a while. I am telling you right now, it is bleak right now. It is really bleak. And again, I say that as somebody who agrees in principle that I believe it will work out. But you would, again, I got to say, man, you're being naive if you don't think there's actually a legit chance here that things are going to go south for AMC. There is a legit chance. And I think it'll work out. I think the studios will come to the rescue or a third party will come to the rescue, whatever. But it's dark right now, man. It's dark. There's no getting around that. It is dark. Anyway, okay, let's keep moving on here. Where are we at? Okay, Alex Spur writes, have you seen the new Twilight Zone series on CBS All Access? I have not. Not better than the original, but still good. The episode with Kumail Nanjiani is my favorite. I didn't even know Kumail Nanjiani was in one. I became a big Kumail Nanjiani fan with The Big Sick. That movie it made me a fan of his for life. I even forgave him for Stuber. Oh my God, Stuber was so bad. And I was so excited for that movie too, but I don't care. He still did The Big Sick. I believe in Kumail Nanjiani. And so all that. So I've been curious about this series, but I never did watch it. Never did get around to watching it. And I've heard pretty much the same thing that what you're saying, Alex. It's not bad. That's what I hear. I don't hear a lot of people saying it's great. I don't hear a lot of people saying it's totally garbage. I'm hearing a lot of people saying it's not bad. So maybe at some point I'll give it a shot. It's certainly on my radar, but I haven't had a chance to get around to watching it quite yet. Okay, Cody Cord writes, OMG, just finished season 3 of Ozark. It's amazingly good. Have you seen it? Again, every day I'm being asked, have you seen season 3 of Ozark? I don't watch Ozark. Anyway, just finished watching season 3 of Ozark. It's amazingly good. Have you seen it? If not, you should. But if you haven't, what are your thoughts on it and the possibility of what's to come in season 4? Thanks again. As I mentioned earlier in the show, I do not watch Ozark. I watched the first 4 episodes of season 1 and I tapped out. It just wasn't for me. It just wasn't working for me. I'm not saying anything crappy about it. I'm just saying I watched it. First few episodes didn't work for me. There's just too much other stuff for me to watch and that I need to get caught up on than to keep pushing through regardless. You know, it didn't work for me. I tapped out. But you are yet the latest voice, Cody, chiming in, telling me how great season 3 is. And I'm wondering if I need to consider to go back and check it out. If I need to reconsider and go back and give Ozark another run. So we'll see. We'll see. Anything is possible here. All right. Alex Spur writes, Which is your favorite James Bond film? I get asked this all the time, and quite often we'll give a different answer depending on the day. But more times than not, it comes down to Casino Royale. I really love Casino Royale. And I know it is one of the relatively newer films. It was the first Daniel Craig film, but I think Casino Royale is probably my favorite. Larry Lease writes, "Hey, John, love the show." Thank you so much, Larry. "Is there any film you wish they would put on demand instead of waiting despite financial loss?" Oh, I mean, well, no, because I don't want them to financially fail and therefore cause problems down the road. But if just magically, somebody asked me a very similar question this earlier in the show. Like, if I could just have them show me one movie, if I could just watch one right now in theaters. I mean, look, Dune has got to be up there. I'm so excited about Dune. Wonder Woman 84, I'm so excited. Obviously, Christopher Nolan's Tenet. It would probably be arguably Venom 2. I'm just very, very geeky. I'm just geeking out about Venom 2, so I want to see that badly. Again, a lot of the other films will be better than Venom 2, but I'm very excited about that. So if there was no financial consequences for it, I would probably say Venom 2. That's probably the one I'd go with right now. Marie Seifring writes, and thanks for sending that in, Larry. Marie Seifring writes, "If you are looking for a dark political satire, look up The Death of Stalin. It's great. The Death of Stalin is wonderful. Like, seriously, tremendously good. Streaming on Netflix. Thanks for all the hard work you do, John." Well, thank you for that, Maria. I appreciate that. And yes, you know what? And I'm as guilty. We talked about Death of Stalin shortly after it first debuted. And we should talk about it more. The cast is stellar. The writing is so good. It is really a special thing. So I wholeheartely endorse Marie's recommendation here. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, that's a good one. If you're running out of the classics, so you're getting all caught up on everything, you're just looking for something really good and fun to enjoy, The Death of Stalin is definitely one you want to check out. That's an excellent recommendation, Marie. Thank you for putting that one in there. Let's see. Luke1234 writes, "Last of Us 2 delayed." And definitely, yeah, we were mentioning that one. We were talking about that a little bit earlier in the show. It is unfortunate because right now, as somebody wrote in earlier, now would be a great time for it to come out with everybody stuck at home and looking for stuff to do. Would have been great. Nicholas Sergi writes, "Cloud Atlas for quarantine rewatch, Swing for Fences." I wasn't big on Cloud Atlas. And when you consider the cast, you'd think like, oh my God, this is going to be great. And I thought the trailers were really intriguing. Cloud Atlas, we were talking about Watchmen, the movie earlier, not the HBO series, the movie earlier. And a lot of people were very divided on Watchmen. And I feel like the same was true of Cloud Atlas. I felt like Cloud Atlas was a film that a lot of people did enjoy it. They liked it, loved it, blah, blah, blah. Thought it was profound and all this kind of stuff. And then there was a lot of people that are like, no, it wasn't profound. It was trying to be profound. But so a lot of very different points of view and viewpoints on that. I'm one of the people who didn't like it so much, to be honest with you. But that's just me. But that's the beautiful thing about all these movies, man. Get all these movies. Some of us like them. Some of us don't. Just because some people don't like them doesn't mean you're not going to like them. And there's always a wealth of possibility with the films we watch, man. So thanks for mentioning that one. Let's see here. Ed Musto writes, "Me and my friend Fergus love your show. Much love." Well, thank you, Ed. I appreciate that. And say thank you as well to your friend Fergus. I appreciate you guys being here and being a part of the film fan community. Appreciate that, man. All right. Next up here, Alex Spur writes, "It bothers me that there was never a Hellboy 3. I thought 2019 Hellboy was okay. Ron Perlman said it should have been a trilogy, and he's disappointed." Yes, true. However, the realities of the situation was Guillermo del Toro wanted $200 million to make Hellboy 3. I mean, he said that himself. Guillermo del Toro wanted in the neighborhood of $200 million to make a Hellboy 3. Let us go over for a moment here. And look at Hellboy 2's box office, shall we? Let's go over and take a quick peek at this. Hellboy 2 worldwide, which I liked Hellboy 2 a lot, by the way. I thought Golden Army was great. Hellboy 2 made $168 million worldwide. And the movie that Guillermo wanted to make was going to be huge and epic and like world destruction and blah, blah, all this kind of stuff. And they were saying, yeah, maybe up to $200 million budget they were going to need. Look at that number. The last one only made $168 million. There was no way in hell. Like, I think it was Legendary. That's had a lot of success. Legendary's had a lot of success. I think the studio Legendary and the rep for Legendary was saying they just can't do it. Apparently, the guy from Legendary and Guillermo met many, many times. They try to come up with something somehow, some way to do it. But the fact of the matter is, you cannot make a $200 million movie as a sequel following up a movie that only made $168 million. Because you make a $200 million movie, you're talking about a movie that minimum needs to make $475, $500 million at the box office just to break even. Just to break even. And there is simply no rational argument to be made that a Hellboy 3 would make that kind of money, with the previous one only making 168. Now listen, I am with you, brother. I would have really enjoyed seeing a Hellboy 3. I really would have enjoyed seeing a Hellboy 3. And obviously Ron Perlman would have loved to make it. Of course he would have. It's paying work. But there was just no way it was going to happen. The only way it could have possibly happened is if Del Toro came back and said, okay, I've come up with a way to do Hellboy 3 for like $75 million. And even $75 million might have been pushing it. That might have been pushing it too, because it would have needed to make a lot more than Hellboy 2 did just to break even. So it was a tough sell, man. It was a tough sell. But, you know, Del Toro felt that, hey, I've invested a lot of time into this. We've been building this franchise. I want a bigger budget to really go balls out with the third one. Great, but there was no reasonable expectation that movie would have made money. It's unfortunate. It sucks, but it is unfortunately the business part of it. So it's that. But I would have liked to have seen it too, Alex. I would have liked to have seen it too. All right. Robert Bornhorst writes, John, do you think the fact that many major 2021 films have shut down production and will be delayed could further hurt the movie theaters? I had a drop go down the wrong pipe earlier. Sorry. It's still sitting right there. No, I don't. Because by the time we get into 2021, we will be back into a regular flow, right? Of X number of movies coming out every week. Yeah, certain others have been pushed back, but others have been pushed up to take those places, right? So no, I don't think that the 2021 films, Aaron Cummings, who's on my show every week, Aaron was supposed to start shooting a big high-profile movie that she got a small role in. She was supposed to shoot it literally the day she was supposed to start shooting her spots is the day they shut production down. So yeah, those movies will be affected, but the spots those 2021 movies were going to inhabit are going to be filled up by movies from 2020 that are being pushed in there, and then we're going to get back into that rhythm and back into that flow. So no, I don't think that that's ultimately going to hurt the industry. There's a lot hurting the industry right now, but I don't think that will be one of them. So, but we'll wait and see, Robert. We'll wait and see. It's an interesting perspective, and it's a good question to ask. All right, Dave XP writes, where are we at? Where did Dave XP? There it is. Do you think this whole COVID-19 situation will finally make Cineplex change their awful practices? Well, if there's any, Cineplex, for those you don't know, is the dominant Canadian movie theater chain. And they used to be my favorite movie theater chain in the world, and then they became terrible, in my opinion. Just awful. But there is hope, Canadian movie fans, because they recently got bought out by Cineworld, the same company that just bought out Regal. So they are, when the dust settles and we'll get all this BS behind us, Cineplex is going to come out and they're going to be under new management, new ownership, and new leadership. So if there's anything to be excited about, Dave XP, as far as Cineplex goes, that's the thing to be excited about. Get rid and sweep away the awful leadership they've had over there, in my opinion, and hopefully there'll be brighter days ahead. I look forward to coming back to Canada and going to a Cineplex again, because they used to be my all-time favorite cinema chain, and then they just went evil, in my opinion. They just went straight up evil. And I hate that theater chain now. So I'm hoping to love them again at some point, but there is reason for that, Dave XP. All right, All Metal Mike writes, sounds like a good time for Disney to buy AMC, except Disney is getting the crap kicked out of them right now. They have no money. Disney is in survival mode right now. Disney, I put out a tweet about this earlier. Wrap your head around this. As big as everybody thinks Disney is, and Disney is huge, Apple can literally buy Disney 5 times over. Think about that. Amazon can almost buy Disney 5 times over. There are much bigger companies, and Disney's liquidity has taken a beating, and their market cap has dropped, and their stock has dropped. So no, All Metal Mike, this is not a good time at all for Disney to think they can buy AMC. It is not a good time for it at all, brother. All right, James Argenta writes, Apple or Amazon is more likely to buy AMC. Well, it's fine. Great minds. James Argenta, great minds. Yeah, if anybody's really, but again, Apple doesn't want to be in the theatrical distribution business. Amazon, maybe. There could be like a 5% chance that maybe an Amazon, with all their limitless amounts of money, could step in and say, because they've really been building up Amazon Studios, that maybe now with the laxing of the old laws about studios being allowed to own movie theaters and blah, 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 maybe there's a possibility there for Amazon. But that presents a lot of problems as well that we'll talk about on another episode at some point. Sean Boundary writes, AMC A-List brought me back to the theaters. Without them, I don't see myself going back to theaters from here. I'll be back to VOD. Burbank is my theater. Burbank is my theater too. Yeah, that's the thing about AMC A-List. AMC A-List, the whole idea of it, and this is why it was so genius, the idea of AMC A-List was to bring people back into the theaters. And it did it. There were people going to movies that they otherwise maybe wouldn't have gone to because we've got A-List. And finally, after quarter after quarter after quarter of AMC losing money on A-List, they knew that if they hung in there with it, it would start to turn a profit. And finally, this past quarter, AMC A-List was profitable. And it was going to be profitable moving forward. It was going to be a moneymaker for them and for the movie industry. It is a great thing. And listen, Sean, here's the good news. If for whatever reason, let's say the worst case scenario happens and AMC goes under. Other companies have started to adopt a similar plan. Like Regal now has Regal Unlimited. That's not quite as good as A-List, but it's very good. It's still very good. Other companies have started to adopt. Alamo Drafthouse has their own version of that now as well. So I think AMC, remember, I still think AMC will come out of the other side of this. But even if it doesn't, other theater chains have started to adopt this as well. So have hope, my friend. Have hope. All right. Mike T54 writes, hey, John, with summer movies being pushed back to fall/winter, how will Kong vs. Godzilla be affected? They already pushed it back. With circumstances as they are, will Kong vs. Godzilla be pushed back again? I think there's a good possibility of that, yes. And I'd be lying if I told you I cared all that much. Listen, am I looking forward to Kong vs. Godzilla? Sure, because it's Kong vs. Godzilla. Sure. But a lot of my enthusiasm has been sapped by the fact that I thought Godzilla King of the Monsters was a poor movie. And it's another example of something that Robert and I really disagree on. Because Rob really liked Godzilla King of the Monsters. I wanted to. You guys know I was psyched for that movie. I was pumped for it. And what can I say? I found it kind of disappointing. I personally found it kind of disappointing. But, it is what it is. It will be interesting to see how all this shakes out, but I think I would give it a good 40% chance, Mike, at this point that we see Kong versus Godzilla or Godzilla versus Kong pushed again. And that's not the worst thing in the world. Remember, we're not talking about movies getting canceled. If we got to wait a little bit longer for it, that's okay. But I do think there is probably a good 40% chance that it does, maybe 60% chance that it doesn't. But we'll have to wait and see. I wish I cared more, but Godzilla vs. King of the Monsters kind of sapped a little bit of that. But I'm still curious to see it. I know you're obviously curious to see it. But I think you might be right about that. I think there's a decent chance it does move. All right, Mike T also writes, also, let's take a massive assumption and say no more new movies are released in 2020. Well, I don't think that's a possibility, but okay. What would the Oscars look like next year? And does Sonic the Hedgehog get nominated for an Oscar? Love you, man. Well, okay, massive fantasy world. Let's say that no more movies come out this year. Yes, Sonic the Hedgehog does get nominated. It clearly gets nominated for Best Visual Effects. And that's about it. But at least maybe Best Sound Design. Even, you know what? The visual effects weren't very good. I'm going to be honest with you. The visual effects, I enjoyed. I didn't think it was great, but I enjoyed Sonic. I got to tell you. And I didn't think I would. I thought it looked like garbage. But I ended up enjoying it. But the visual effects are very bad. The visual effects are quite poor. But there's not a lot of visual effects heavy movies that have come out this year, and therefore it would get a Best Visual Effects nomination at the Academy Awards. Sound design. By the way, the sound in Sonic is quite good. I thought the sound design and the sound editing were both very, very quite solid. That it would normally get Academy Award nominations? No. But if there were no other movies to come out this year, could very well get get some sound nominations. Wouldn't be nominated for Best Picture, and none of the acting awards. But although I do love Jim Carrey in it. Jim Carrey to me stole the show in Sonic. But you're looking at movies like Invisible Man would be Oscar frontrunner. The Gentleman would be an Oscar frontrunner. What else? Trying to think of what else. Not a lot, man. The pickings would be slim, brother. The pickings would be quite slim. Okay. Alex Spur writes, sorry guys, my throat's starting to die on me here. If movie theaters fail, then Hollywood itself may fail. This is the worst case scenario in my opinion. See, that's exactly why, Alex, that just kind of sums up. These are, as Obi-Wan talking to the Gungan Council, you must see this. It's a symbiotic relationship, right? The studios need AMC to be in existence. AMC needs the studios. The studios need AMC as well. They just need them. They need them to be up and running and functioning. And that's why I believe, while it is definitely possible that AMC closes its doors forever, I believe that barring a third party coming in to save them, I believe the studios have to come in and save them. The studios will all have to get together and say, we need to come up with a plan together to throw AMC a lifeline, because if they go under, we're going to feel it. And it's going to hurt all of us as studios. It's going to hurt them terribly. And so they know that. They know that. That's why I believe they're definitely going to do something about it. But we'll see, man. We'll see. But that's the exact type of doomsday scenario that we're talking about, and that they've got to make sure they insure themselves against. So we'll see how that all turns out. All right. Casinema Reviews writes, sorry guys, been going 2.5 hours now, talking straight. Movies I've never seen that I'm going to try to watch this week. Dread. Nice. Dread is a good one, man. I thought that movie was going to be terrible, and it's so good. The Shape of Water, obviously won Best Picture at the Academy Awards. Brilliant film. Moulin Rouge, in my top 20 films of all time. The Brothers Bloom. I like The Brothers Bloom. I don't love it, but I like The Brothers Bloom. And because you just brought it up, I'm going to add The Nice Guys to that. You're not going to regret it. Shane Black at his best. I believe he wrote and directed it, I believe. Ryan Gosling, Russell Crowe. It's a magnificent, fun movie that should have been a franchise. Anyway, any other suggestions for movies? Not many have seen. Well, listen, Casino, we've been putting out every day. We've been mentioning movies on the John Campea Show. While we're all in lockdown, Robert and I kind of end the main part of the show by giving a recommendation. So there's lots there to check out, dude. Go back, follow up that list. A lot of people have been putting up lists here today, Casinema, to go and check out. Somebody also brought up a little bit earlier that Netflix has an awards section. Tons of great movies in there. So without knowing which movies you have or have not seen, I can't give you any specific recommendations. But again, take a look at those movies that we've been recommending. Look at that awards section on Netflix. A lot of good stuff to get caught up on. And I'm glad you're watching Nice Guys, dude. I'm glad. Please do let me know what you think of it, because I love that movie. All right. Guillaume LaBelle writes, "Hey, John, I did my duty. I just relaunched my own vlogging channel. Nice. Each day I recommend one movie that I really like that not everybody has seen, a little bit like what you and Rob do. Today's movie is Josh Trank's Chronicle. Awesome movie. Have a good one." And that was funny because Josh Trank's Chronicle was mentioned a little bit earlier in the show today. I remember, I was done with found footage movies. Done with them. I'd grown tired of them. And to be honest, Chronicle didn't look all that great to me. And, and Michael B. Jordan wasn't Michael B. Jordan yet. You know what I mean? And Josh Trank was this new kid, nothing. Max Landis wrote the script, all right, a little, that's intriguing. But I wasn't even going to go to the press screening. The reason I went to the press screening is because my brother-in-law wanted to see the movie, and it was actually at the studio. So they invited us to the studio lot to go and watch it. And I like going on studio lots. It's always fun. I feel like I'm immersed in Hollywood history when I go on one of the studio lots, whether it's Fox's lot or Warner Brothers or Paramount. I always feel like it just always feels really cool. So whatever, we went to go watch Chronicle, expecting nothing out of it. God, I love that movie. I walked out and it's like, holy crap. That was like one of the most creative, inventive, despite the fact that I was so done with the found footage thing, the creative, inventive, awesome super villain origin stories, superhero origin stories I'd seen in a long time. It was creative. It was fresh. I just enjoyed it deeply. And I really bummed out that Josh Trank, his career got derailed because of the whole Fantastic Four stuff and the way Fox treated him and all that kind of nonsense. And Josh Trank, by the way, has got a movie coming out at some point with Tom Hardy that is an Al Capone movie. And I think the name of it's called Bozo. I think it's called Bozo. It could be something else. Anyway, so I'm really looking forward to see what Josh Trank does next. And but Chronicle, really enjoyed that one. I'm glad you did too. All right, Luke123 writes. 1234 writes, "How many times did you watch The Rise of Skywalker?" I think I went to see it 3 times, maybe 4. So because I went to the premiere, and then I went to the premiere on one day. The next day I went to a press screening, and then we had already bought I believe we had already bought tickets for 2 showings on its opening weekend. So even before the premiere, we had bought 2 tickets. We had bought tickets to 2 screenings for the opening weekend, and I went to the premiere, and then I went to the press screening the next day. And so I went to the premiere, Anna and I went to the premiere. And then the next day I went to a screening with Aaron's husband, because Aaron's husband, Tom, who's a really cool dude. I got to bring Tom on the show sometime. Tom's just a really, really cool dude. But I took Tom to go see it because he's a big, big Star Wars guy. So I invited him to go with me. And so he went to go see that. And then Anna and I went to go see it a couple times on opening weekend. So I believe the answer is 4. I believe the answer is 4. Every time going, please like it this time. Nope, still don't like it. But hey, it is what it is. All right, Larry writes, "What movie outside of tentpole do you wish would be on VOD or streaming?" None. I don't want movies to go to VOD or streaming because that automatically means they fail. So I don't really want any of them to go to streaming. I mean, that's really the actual answer. So yeah, none that comes to mind that I want to go straight to VOD or streaming. None. Answer is none. Wayne Edwards writes, "Hello, John. I'm going through my top 10 favorite films. Most I still love, but a couple of them don't touch me anymore. Has that happened to you? There's a film that you love, you don't watch it for a while, and when you go back, you don't like it anymore. I mean, the real answer to that question is this movie was never a top 10 for me, but it is a movie I loved. I loved. And it is a movie I was extremely proud of. Let me just, I don't even know that I can find a picture here. Hold a second. Let's see here. I don't think I'm going to be able to find this anywhere. No way. I don't think I can find it. I can't find it, which is probably a good thing. Okay, so I've been beating around the bush too long here. Here's the thing. I did a movie. It was a fan film, and I loved it, and I was super proud of it. I was just completely, I was so proud of it. I did a fan film of Star Wars: The Phantom Menace that takes place around the events of Star Wars: Phantom Menace. That's a cross of The Godfather and Star Wars: The Phantom Menace called Rise of the Trades. And we took it, we played it at Star Wars Celebration. It was featured at the Film Fan Festival at Star Wars Celebration. It got some attention. Like, we got on local news. We sold out theaters for it. We were incredibly proud of it. I love this thing. So 10 years pass that I don't watch it. I don't watch it for 10 years. And then my buddy Rodney up in Canada, my buddy Rod, he drops me a message out of nowhere and says, "Hey, John, I was digging through some boxes and I came across one of the DVDs of Rise of the Trades. And I have since lost all my copies of Rise of the Trades. I had lost them." He goes, "I found one of the DVDs of Rise of the Trades, and we had the case, special features on it and everything." He's like, "Do you want me to send it to you?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I want to show it to Ann." So he puts it in shipping, and I'm like telling Ann, "Oh my God, Ann, I can't wait for you to watch this. We made this movie. We made it with basically no money, and we did the visual, like I did a lot of the visual effects myself in the movie, CGI, the script is great. Oh my God, I'm so proud of this movie. I cannot wait for you to see it." So the day comes, Rise of the Trades shows up, and the best way I know how to describe this, do you ever watch that episode of Parks and Rec where I can't remember what's Andy's, not Andy's. What's Leslie's, the guy she ends up marrying in the show. The guy I can't remember the character's name, but anyway, remember he was unemployed for a bit and he was at home and he made his claymation project, his Maish as he called it, and then when he sat down to show it to Chris, he's like, he plays it for him, and they're like. And it was only like a second and a half going, "I worked 3.5 weeks on that." The disc of Rise of the Trades showed up that I had spent a year making. This little short film, a year. I edited it. I did a bunch of the CGI. Some other people at my company did better CGI in it, but I did a bunch of the CGI myself. I had to complete the project, all that kind of stuff. And I was so proud of this movie. I thought it was awesome. 10 years pass. The DVD shows up. I sit down with Ann to show it to her proudly. And oh my God, it's awful. Oh my God, it's awful. Like, not just by Hollywood standards awful. I mean awful. And everything good about it was because of other people. Everything that was bad and terrible about it was because of me. It was terrible. And I know that's not really what you're asking about. You're asking about big Hollywood movies. I get it, but there's not really one I can think of that I really, really loved and was infinitely proud of, and then was so outrageously disappointed and disillusioned by it when I watched it again 10 years later. Than my own little fan film called Rise of the Trades. Oh my God. Oh my God, it was so bad. It was so bad, guys. It was so bad. Anyway, let's see. Alex Detman writes, John, knowing you are a Patriots fan, is it because you are a Tom Brady fan and you stuck with them, or is it that you are a Brady fan and you're not? And are you with the Bucks? For me, I was a Ray Lewis fan and stuck with them. No, see, I've told this story a lot of times. when it comes to football, I'm more of a coach guy. Don't get me wrong, I am a big Tom Brady fan, but I became a fan of the Patriots when Coach Parcells went there. When Coach Parcells, whose New York Giants beat my Buffalo Bills, because I lived right across the border from Buffalo, right? And so the NFL team I would follow was just Buffalo, just because it was close proximity. They lost my loyalty when they benched Doug Flutie. Anyway, and that first year, there was 4 years in a row that the Buffalo Bills went to the Super Bowl. 4 years in a row that they went. Didn't win a single time, but think about that. When's the last time a team went to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row? Anyway, it was unheard of at that time. So they went to the first year that they went, though, they played the New York Giants, coached by Bill Parcells. And then the Giants won. And I became fascinated with Bill Parcells after that. So when he went to New England, I started following the New England Patriots. And this was when they had another dude at quarterback who then got injured. And Tom Brady, this rookie, came in to fill in while the quarterback was injured. And the rest was history, right? The rest was history. So that's when I started following them. So I became a big fan of Tom Brady. And I am going to definitely pay more attention to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that he's there. But remember, in the new season, Tom Brady is going to be 43 years old. Never forget that. He's going to be 43 years old. And I believe this last season, while Tom Brady was still quite good, you could totally see it was catching up to him. Tom Brady is not the same Tom Brady he was 4 years ago. So I do not expect magic out of Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. I don't expect magic. He's going to be 43 years old. And he's already lost a step. He's the greatest of all time, but he has now started. Time catches up with everybody, and it's catching up with him. So yes, the Pats are still going to be my number one favorite team. The Seahawks are still my number two team because much like I followed the Patriots because of Coach Parcells. I started following the Seahawks when Coach Carroll went there from USC. When Coach Carroll went to Seattle, I started following the Seahawks because I think Coach Carroll coaches an entertaining brand of football. So they became my number two team, and I've been my number two team for a while. But I am going to follow the Bucs now much more closely, and I'll be rooting for the Bucs in a lot of their games because Brady's there, but I don't expect magic from Brady anymore. It's just at 43 years old, it's too much to ask. So I think he'll be good, but I don't think he's going to take them to the Super Bowl this year or anything like that, but we'll see. All right, next up, Ben Rayner writes, maybe they want Mulan in July is for international play for China. That's the same thing my wife said, actually, Ben. That's a very good possibility. They probably think it'll be huge in China, more than the US maybe, just guessing. Yeah, because we were talking earlier in the show about how the fact that Disney they just moved Mulan to July. When everybody else is moving movies out of July, Disney is moving Mulan into July. It still is crazy to me. And you just brought up the exact same thing my wife Ann brought up. She goes, they probably 100% think theaters are going to be up and running again in China by then, and they will be. The theaters in China, while there is a possibility, there's a legit possibility that theaters will be up and running again in July here, because that's over 3 months away. Depending at late July, it's over 3 months away. So there's a possibility. Theaters will be up and running in China again, definitely, by then. They already tried opening them a little bit right now, and we're starting to see China come back into the full swing of things. I think absolutely, I would put $10 that by July, yeah, theaters in China will be back open again. So it could very well be because of China that's why they're aiming that date. It's a strong possibility. So we'll have to wait and see. All right, Slim Trav writes, over under 25%, Ryan Reynolds and Kevin Hart appear in Fast 9. I'm going to go under. I think Dwayne Johnson is saving them for Hobbs and Shaw 2. I think we definitely see them both in Hobbs and Shaw 2. I am not expecting to see. So not zero, but I will take under 25% on that. Jill Kynaston writes, Hey, John, I have a film recommendation that I used to watch with my 3 eldest. Jason and the Argonauts. We used to talk about that one a lot. 1963. One of my sons still calls Talos, in his words, a scary bastard. I later introduced the film to my 2 youngest. Thanks. Listen, Jason and the Argonauts is a film that actually John Schnepp used to recommend a lot. Hold on a second, let me just bring it up. Jason, why am I spelling this wrong? Jason and the Argonauts. The classic Jason and the Argonauts. Schnepp used to talk about this one a lot. He loved this film. John Schnepp adored this film. As a matter of fact, it's not like he ever came close to it, but I remember one conversation that I had with Schnepp as he was getting close to wrapping up his documentary, The Death of Superman Lives, What Happened. We were having lunch one day and, asking, hey, do you got other projects in mind? And he had a whole list of other potential projects he would do. But something about Jason and the Argonauts was actually one that he was considering doing. I don't think he ever actually got close to doing that one. His attention turned to other projects, but I remember there was even a period of time he was considering doing a documentary about that movie. At least he brought it up to me once or twice. And it is a classic, Jill. So that is a good one to bring up. That's a really good deep cut there. By the way, for you guys who are still looking for some classics to get caught up on, watch Jason and the Argonauts. It's definitely one you're going to want to see. Thanks for bringing that one up, Jill. All right. Just got time for a couple more here, guys. Well, it's not time. I'm going to be out. My throat's about to die. We're getting close to 3 hours. I've been talking straight with no guest in here to give me a break from speaking. So we're going to get there. Clever Destroyer writes, I bet Khabib versus Tony is never going to happen. Oh, it'll happen. It'll happen sometime, somehow, some way. It will happen at some point, lest one of them gets injured and retires. I don't know that it'll be this year. I don't know that it'll be next year. I don't know if it'll be in 3 years. But at some point, I'm willing to bet that fight does happen. Somehow, some way. But that's as much of a cursed fight as, New Mutants is cursed in the movies. Chris Warden writes, John, you definitely should watch Fear of a Black Hat. It's from 1994 and basically the rap/hip hop version of Spinal Tap, kind of like CB4 but way funnier. CB4 is a movie I enjoyed, but Fear of a Black Hat, I'm not even familiar with it at all. Hold on a second. Fear of a Black Hat. Let's see this. 1993. I don't know that this ever got a theatrical release. A mockumentary chronicling the rise and fall of NWH, a not particularly talented or particularly bright but always controversial hip hop group. So one in the vein of Spinal Tap. I am just not familiar with this at all. It sounds fun because I'm a big fan of Spinal Tap. So, and I'm a big fan of CB4. So I think I will have to maybe keep my eyes open for that one, Chris. Thank you for the recommendation. Hey, if any of you guys have seen it, please give your thoughts. Have you seen this movie as well? If so, let me know. All right, Elijah Anderson writes, hey, Mr. Campea, do you think it'd be cool to see a Lord Miller cut of Solo? No. I know it'll never happen, but it would be cool to see. I don't think so at all. I was very, very turned off. Listen, I love Lord and Miller, right? I have interviewed them. I've met them. I've hung out with them at a couple of parties. I think they're great. They wouldn't know me from a hole in the wall, but I think they are great. I'm a big fan of their movies. And to this day, I'm a big Lord Miller fan. Always look forward to seeing what they're doing. That has not changed, never will. But I'm going to be honest with you. I was very turned off by not only the direction I heard they were trying to take Solo, but the manner in which they were doing it. I was very turned off by it. Lord and Miller, and by the way, I love what Ron Howard did with Solo. I thought Solo was great. I really, really enjoyed Solo. That said, Lord and Miller, they agreed to make a certain movie. And then they pretty much started to make a completely different movie than the one the studio had agreed to. And, Lawrence Kasdan, the guy who wrote Empire Strikes Back, he was particularly pissed from everything that we understand. He was particularly pissed because they were basically throwing his screenplay out the window. They had sat down and met with Kathy Kennedy, with Lawrence Kasdan, and they agreed on the movie they were going to make, and then they started to make a completely different movie. And that's not cool. It's not your movie. It's not your money, and it's not your franchise. And from everything that I've heard, both publicly and privately, about what they were trying to do with Solo, it quite frankly, it turns me off. And remember, I am a huge fan of Lord Miller. I love these guys, and I still do to this day. Cannot wait to see what they do next. Love them. But everybody has a bad day at the office, and I think what went on with Solo was their bad day at the office. So I'll be honest with you. Look, if, Phil Lord gave me a call and said, "Hey, Campea, I saw your show," because of course they all watch this show, right? Of course. Campea, I saw your show. Listen, I do have a cut of our movie here. Obviously, the effect's not done and all this kind of stuff, but I've got a cut. You want me to come over and show it to you? Well, of course I would say yes. Any of us would say yes. Of course I'd be one of those people to say, of course I would. But aside from like Phil Lord himself calling me to say, "I want to come over and show this to you," I honestly I'm not that, no. Just because I was soured by what went on there. I was a little bit soured by what went on there. But of course, if he called me and said, "You want to watch it?" Of course I would. All right, Clever to Swear writes, "Do you have some favorite stand-up comedians?" Man, you listen, it still hurts so much to say it, but for my whole life, my favorite and the best stand-up comedian I thought was Bill Cosby. It so hurts to say that now. But I remember there was a documentary even Seinfeld did, and about his own comedy, about him. I think the name was called "I'm Telling You for the Last Time." I think that was the name of the Seinfeld thing. And there's this part in the documentary where Seinfeld is in this comedy club and Chris Rock is there too. And Chris Rock comes in and Chris Rock and Seinfeld Chris Rock says, "I just came and watched Cosby." Like Cosby was still doing some stand-up. He goes, "I just came and saw Cosby." And they just talk about how he is hands down the greatest of all time. Right? You got Chris Rock and Jerry Seinfeld like talking about Cosby. And Cosby had this stand-up, my favorite stand-up concert of all time was one that Cosby had done called Bill Cosby Himself is what it's called. I think the greatest stand-up comedy concert ever. I liked it more than Raw and Delirious. I liked it more than any other stand-up comedy concert ever. I thought it was the funniest shit I've ever heard. And man, when all this stuff started to come out about what he did to so many women, it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. But I'm not going to rewrite history and pretend that he wasn't my favorite comedian for my whole. He was my favorite comedian for my whole life. And there's that. Now, another guy I totally love. Is Stephen Wright. Stephen Wright is hilarious. He's the king. He's the greatest comedian of all time when it comes to one-liners. That's just Stephen Wright. Stephen Wright was absolutely amazing. Richard Pryor was absolutely insanely good. Richard Pryor was so funny and in many ways very much ahead of his time. And there's a few other guys who, I'm really getting into, oh, damn it, what's his name? The guy who just did the voice of Spider-Ham in John Maloney? Oh, damn it, what's his name? He just did the voice of Spider-Ham in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And I'm forgetting his name. And I just watched the last couple of his comedy specials, and holy crap, this dude is hilarious. Joe Coy is another one. John Mulaney, thank you. Hitman Hudson in the chat board just put in John Mulaney. Yes, John Mulaney. He's amazing, right? Joe Coy, I love Joe Coy. I think Joe Coy is hilarious. And I just saw his most recent one that came out, I guess, about 6 months ago that he did in Hawaii. Holy crap. That was some of the funniest shit I've seen in a long time. So yeah, there's a bunch of them I really like. Anyway, Clever to Swear writes, with you watching a crap ton of films, do you ever mix up plot elements with other films that are similar? Oh, yes. Absolutely, I do. Or even with those similar style. I mean, dude, you just saw me earlier in the show, right? Somebody wrote, I can't even remember what movie they were asking me about. Somebody wrote in about, have you seen this movie? I'm like, oh, yes, I really like that movie. Let's go pull up that movie. I like that. Oh, that's not the movie I was thinking about at all. Like, yes. Like sometimes when you watch as many films as many of you and I do, like a lot of us watch a lot of movies. And every month there's just more. And then every month there's more. And then every month there's more. And yeah, you got to forgive us. Sometimes I confuse. It's like, oh yeah, I love this guy in that movie. It can't be that guy wasn't in that movie. What are you talking about? Of course he was in that movie. No. He was in a movie that was similar, but it was a different one. I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah, it happens. Absolutely, it happens. 100% it happens. I'd like to tell you that it doesn't, but I'd be lying to you because it absolutely does. All right. Film Corvelli writes, 3 films that are, in my opinion, perfect. Lawrence of Arabia, The Great Escape, 12 Angry Men. I mean, they're... I very much hesitate to ever use the word perfect when it comes to movies, but there are a couple that I have a hard time not attributing the phrase to. Lawrence of Arabia is a perfect movie. Shawshank Redemption is a perfect movie. It's not to say, the reason I hesitate even with those movies using the term perfect is because perfect suggests that they couldn't possibly be better. Everything could be better. No, so when I use the word, and this is just me, and granted, it is a good play on semantics. But for me, when I say like a movie is perfect, 9 times out of 10, what I'm basically saying is that movie had no flaws. Like that movie did nothing wrong. Like Shawshank Redemption, there is not a single thing about that movie that was done the wrong way. Not a thing in that movie that was done wrong. There is no bad part to that movie. There is no cringe part of that movie. There's no eye-rolling part of that movie. You know, even in my favorite movies of all time, whether they're Star Wars or Highlander or Lord of the Rings, yeah, like as great as they are, and they're my favorites of all time, there are 1 or 2 points that's like, okay, maybe that one's like, Tashi Station. Okay, there are points, not perfect, but they're my favorites. A movie like Shawshank Redemption, nothing is wrong with it. But that's not to say that there aren't things about it that were good that maybe could have even been done better. So that's why I hesitate to use the term perfect, because perfect almost implies like you couldn't have possibly done it better. Well, everything could have been better, I suppose. So I hesitate to use that, but those are some great films, Phil. Those are some great films. All right. Isaac Majid writes, I can't believe today is the 6-year anniversary for Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Crazy. Thanks for being awesome. I didn't even think about that. I still remember coming out of that theater, the first press screening, I saw Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and walking out and being with one of my colleagues. And we were just kind of like deer in headlights. What did we just watch? Like, holy crap. I mean, it was such an incredible experience. 6 years ago, Isaac. Cannot believe it. That is crazy, man. Django19 writes, thoughts on Drive. Late to it, but I loved it. I love Drive. Now, here's the thing about Drive, though. Interesting thing. Pissed off a lot of people because it was a very different movie than the movie they made trailers for. The trailers for Drive were nothing like the movie. And I remember it pissed a lot of people off. There were even some talks about a possible lawsuit being filed against the studio for making a really misleading marketing campaign. But as it is, I thought the movie was great. I really enjoyed it. All right, Michael Bradley writes, hello, John. Another movie that changed title when it went digital was John Carter of Mars, changed to just John Carter. Very good movie, by the way. No, actually, they changed the name of the movie before it even came out in theaters. The movie in theaters was not called John Carter of Mars. It was just John Carter. Now, originally, they were going to call it John Carter of Mars, and they should have, but sometime before the movie came out in theaters, they did, well before the movie came out in theaters, they changed the name to just John Carter. So John Carter was the name of the movie when it was in theaters. So it didn't change it from theaters to home video. It was called John Carter in theaters. It totally should have been called John Carter of Mars. You can hear my voice dying as I'm going, guys. I'm sorry. It happens when I start to get close to 3 hours. But it was John Carter. Should have been John Carter of Mars, though. All right, Alex Detman writes, hypothetically, Disney approached you and said, we want a standalone Star Wars film and you get to direct with full freedom on story, cast, and overall treatment. Tell us what a Campea Star Wars film will be about. I'll tell you, it would be set about 10 years later. And it wouldn't surround anybody we've already encountered. It wouldn't, not because I don't like Rey, Poe, or Finn. I do. It's just that they've had their movies. I would now start to expand the Star Wars universe. And I would say, okay, now it's 10 years after the events of Rise of Skywalker. The First Order was defeated. Now we're in a galaxy that's in this sort of a situation. And I would go well beyond the Outer Rim and I would tell a story. So a little bit of Mandalorian storytelling style there, but it would be big, grand, epic, planetary, but not galaxy wide. That's what I would personally do. Like a problem between two planets and the systems are so far out there, it's not really something the still just getting reestablished new republic is even getting there. They can't possibly police everything. And it wouldn't be galaxy wide, it would be interplanetary. You know what I mean? And I'd have some big sort of dramatic war-based movie there with a lot of drama, new characters, new settings. That's what I would do. Start expanding the Star Wars universe, and that's the direction I would go. All right, next up, Darklock63 writes, be sure to set a password to your Zoom session. There's a lot of Zoom bombing going on. Yeah, I heard. But our Zoom thing is closed. Like, there's a New York Rangers player, a young black hockey player who I just read the surface of the story, so I don't know all the details, who is getting ready, who's been drafted by the New York Rangers, getting ready to go. So he had this big open Zoom chat with like 100 fans or 500 fans or something like that. And some dude representing the absolute worst of humanity, a total living, walking asshole, decided to bomb the chat with the N-word over and over and over and over and over again. Obviously meaning in a very derogatory way. And there was that. So our Zoom chat session is a closed Zoom chat session. So it'll be very, very different. But yeah, it's really sad when you see people with absolutely no life doing stuff like that. It's really too bad. Alex Detman writes, bro, why does Chicago got to get blown up? I just had to pick one off the top of my head. I don't mind Chicago. I just had to pick one off the top of my head. Come on. You But Stronger writes, have you seen HBO's documentary Tickled on Hulu? Dude, this came out. I remember when this came out. It's about journalists that wants to interview an international tickling competition for fun, but it goes dark. But instead finds out about a super shady and bizarre company behind it. Highly recommended. I saw that years ago. And it is a total WTF kind of thing. It is just, I mean, just the premise to start is weird. I mean, it's just a weird premise to start, right? But then it takes like almost like a catfish kind of a turn, where you thought like, and when I say catfish, I mean it's a documentary that you thought was going to be about one thing, and then it totally changes gears as the story goes in a different direction and becomes about something completely entirely. It is weird, man. It is weird and kind of dark, and I haven't even thought about that one in a long time. I haven't thought about that in a long, long time. But I'm glad you brought that one up. All right. Ace Jojo writes, Chronicle stole Akira's story. Live action, X-Men, I don't think so. Look, I think there are a couple of thematic elements, sure, but I don't believe for a second that it stole the Akira story. Not at all. I think there are a couple of thematic similarities, but you can say that about every movie. I really don't agree with that. I don't think that's true at all. I mean, you saw it that way, and I respect that. I'm just saying I personally disagree. I didn't see it that way at all. All right, Oak Eye writes, I fan cast Carl Urban as MCU Wolverine. Well, listen, a lot of people have been saying Carl Urban is Wolverine for a very long time. But then that pisses a lot of people off because there are a lot of people out there who want like 5'1" Wolverine. Listen, I don't know what the MCU's Wolverine is going to be like. So I can't say who would be perfect for the role. But I'll tell you this. If they announced tomorrow out of nowhere that Karl Urban was going to be the new Wolverine, I'd be down for it. Because I love Karl Urban, dude. We were just talking about Dredd a little bit earlier. I love Karl Urban. I actually had him on. Karl Urban was on my Masters of the Web panel one year at Comic-Con. And then I actually emceed and I moderated the premiere of Dredd at Comic-Con. It was their first public performance of Dredd was at Comic-Con, and I got to be the moderator for the Q&A after the premiere. It was wonderful. Karl couldn't have been a nicer dude, and I'm a big fan of his. So, yeah, I'd be totally down for that. All right. Luke, I am your plumber, writes, I just want to say thank you for still putting on the show during these crazy times. I can't wait for the show to start every day. Oh, thanks so much, man. That's always nice to hear. I can't wait to do the show every day, so thank you for that. So just want to say thanks to you and Rob and all guests on the show. Plus, I recommend only one movie, A Time to Kill. So we're going to go into the Bond era there. Well, listen, I get a lot of people right into the show. Like you just did. And they say, thank you for doing the show. It's a great distraction during all this stuff. But I got to tell you, it's therapeutic for me too. It's because in the midst of all this, being able to do this show and get together with the film fan community online and have all of us talk and talk about movies and stuff like this, I got to tell you, it's therapeutic for me too. It really is. I think it's helping me maintain my sanity through doing all this. Of course, routine does that, but it's more than just routine. The fact that you guys are here, the film fan community, and allow me to be a part of it and get to talk about movies every day and everything, it just makes all this a little bit more bearable. It doesn't fix any of the problems. It doesn't. But it just makes it all a little bit more bearable as we're going through it. And a lot of other people have it much worse than us. I'll tell you this story. I got an email last night from one of our viewers in New York. Just shared this horrible story with me. In the past just little while, both of their grandparents died. Not coronavirus related, but both of his grandparents died. While other family members of his, in New York, it's a real problem in New York, have been tested positive for the virus. And it's just been a really, really tough time. And apparently, like at the funeral of one of the grandparents, like he was the only family member who could be there because of, the infection and everything. Just a really hard thing. But they wrote in about saying watching the show, interacting with other people who watch the show as well has been really, really great for them and to help them get through it. And that's the great thing about movies, man. Movies do that. And the movie fan community, just talking about movies, I believe that, again, it's not something that fixes any of the problems. But what it does is it gives our minds a break. It lets us come back and face our problems a little bit more refreshed and a little bit more capable, maybe. So I treasure the film fan community. I treasure that I value and so much that I get to do this every day. And thank you, Luke, for the kind words, and thank you for being here and being a part of it as well. I really do appreciate that. All right. Last couple of questions, guys, and then my throat is officially done. I can't go anymore. My throat's going to die on me here. We are now over 3 hours. Dangerous Lee writes, hey, John, proud Patreon supporter here. Thank you so much for being a Patreon supporter, Dangerous. I really appreciate that, man. I've really enjoyed the few behind-the-scenes vids you've done in the past and was wondering if you could do more of them, maybe monthly and exclusively for your Patreon supporters. I'd be so down. Love the show. Yes, I am actually planning on doing a full video. It'll probably end up being like maybe like over 20 minutes of kind of a full walkthrough studio tour of what I have in my studio, what I do, and what I do every single day to make the John Campea Show happen. All the different pieces of the puzzle that get moved around and everything, walking through each piece of gear, why I use that piece of gear, each piece of software, my philosophy, all that kind of stuff. So I am going to be doing one of those soon. Maybe sooner rather than later. I'm not sure. Fact checker Jonathan and I got to talk about that. Fact checker Jonathan is in many ways, but kind of my production coordinator. So he and I have to work through that and get that part figured out. But yes, it will be coming. We will be doing it. And I appreciate you asking about it. And again, man, thank you so much for being a Patreon supporter. I mean, look, everybody who supports this channel does a great job, but our Patreon supporters, that support being there every month, that's what allows us to have staff. And that's what allows us to do a lot of things that we do. And just thank you so much for being a Patreon supporter, Dangerously. I appreciate that. All right. Edgar Navarro writes, will you be watching WrestleMania this weekend? I'll be honest with you. I watch WrestleMania every year. Ann and I were even supposed to be in Florida going to WrestleMania this year for her birthday. That's what she wanted to do. We had our tickets. We had everything. Without an audience, I don't know that I'm interested. But I will probably end up seeing some of it, because Corey is going to come over here, and Ann and Corey are going to want to watch some of it. So I will probably, even though I'm not trying to go out of my way to watch it, I will probably end up watching some of it. Let's see. Curtis Lopez writes, the quote wasn't from Man of Steel. It was from Superman 1978. If that's true, it was very, very similar to the one that Russell Crowe does in it. Maybe that was on purpose. Maybe that was actually by design. Oak Eye writes, Far From Home or The Amazing Spider-Man 1? Amazing Spider-Man 1. I like Far From Home. I like Far From Home very much. But I really like The Amazing Spider-Man 1. Not nearly, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, not nearly as much. But I really did enjoy The Amazing Spider-Man 1. I would put The Amazing Spider-Man 1 over Far From Home. Maybe not over Homecoming, but I think I'd put it over Far From Home. All right. Final question of the day, guys. Adnan Ahmed writes, thoughts on Last of Us 2 being delayed? I'm so bummed. Love from India. Yeah, I mean, again, we talked about this a little bit earlier. The only thing I can think of is that it must have been a production issue. Whether it is a physical production of discs can't happen right now because not everybody downloads the games. Whether it's they just needed to still put the final touches on the game, and since all production's kind of shut down, maybe. I mean, it's unfortunate. I know a lot of people were looking forward to the game. And right now, especially, would have been a great time for it. So it is really unfortunate, but given how so many things that require a lot of people to work on it being pushed back, not really surprised. Okay, guys, listen. For everybody else who still has questions outstanding, from Gabe, Nicholas, Santez, Artur, and everybody else, do not worry. On Monday's show, we will start the Q&A with your questions, because we still got about 15 or 20 questions to get through, but I'm in agony right now. My throat is killing me. We've been going over 3 hours, so we got to put the brakes on now. But do not worry, you send in those questions. Your questions will start off the Q&A section on Monday's John Campea Show. So guys, with that being said, that will do it for me for today, guys. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Hope you're all being smart. Stay safe. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Let's do all the things that we need to be doing to get this BS behind us just as fast and as safely as we can. And then we can get on with life as normal. I mean, it would be great if we did, but it's going to take all of us to do our part. Be smart, be safe, take care of ourselves, and take care of each other. And we'll get there, guys. We will get there. Thank you guys so much for being here. Special thank you to all you guys who sent in the questions, not just because you gave us great fun things to talk about, and you did, but also because in doing so, you supported the channel while you were doing it. And again, I'm having a hard time, guys. And all of us here at the John Campea YouTube channel, thank you very much for that. Guys, that will do it for me. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.